the opportunity at Advanced Plating was great. They gave me the opportunity to come in there and build a customer base, and was basically special projects manager. So what that basically entailed was if
dealing with assholes like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Can y'all chrome this?
I still have no fucking idea how you kept your level of composure.
In 2018, the fire happens. He's like, and he calls me and he's like, yeah, you can't even get near there. He's like, they're shutting the interstate down because the smoke's so bad.
Oh, shit.
I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, like Top Golf, you can't even see it Top Golf. He says, it's on the news. As you can imagine, my phone is blowing up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's tech messages.
What's up with my parts?
Yeah, everybody's concerned about what they got in there, which I understand. You know, and the first thing I did was just walked up and hug him because I was like, I don't know what else to say. You know, you just watched your life's work burn to the ground.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of Oil and Whiskey. This week, Josh Mishler, Aeromotive Group Vice President of Sales. You've done a little bit of everything. We've been friends for a long time. We've been talking about doing this, and it's happening. It's happening now.
Yeah, we've been
right
hanging
now
since, the very first car show I've ever been to. We've been a long, awesome
since way back,
man.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but
20
very glad to be here. I know that. So
good to have you. Good to have somebody in the flesh. We've been a lot of remote podcasts lately.
Yeah, a lot of Zooms. Now doing it in person, especially with you, the stories. You've come up a lot on this podcast from a bunch of different people. It's crazy. It's always like, man, it's always a reminder of like, we've got to get this one.
Remember that motherfucker? That
The beard on that guy.
Yeah.
I tell you.
by the beard of Zeus.
You came up with, Gary Case, that one came up then, and there's been a lot of stuff, especially in the publishing and editorial print media side of things. It comes up a lot.
yeah, it's always entertaining because I'll have somebody go, "Hey, I heard your name on the podcast again," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" And then I go check it out, and I'm like, "Oh, what do you
Wasn't
know?"
bad, I guess.
Yeah, it's always like, let's hear what they have to say.
A little closer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Let's hear what they have to say, and then okay, it wasn't that bad.
Wasn't that bad. How true are those stories that we hear sometimes?
They're all pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate?
Yeah.
I always get nervous when I'll get that text and it'll be like, "Hey man, I heard like you guys brought me up on the podcast." I'm like, who is this? What did we say?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. What was it again? Just remind me.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so far.
Alan had made the comment that he thought he was going to hit me with the G-Force Kudu when he was doing donuts, and I'm like, "You don't need to worry about that. I got this. I will get out of the way. This isn't one of them streetcar takeover videos where somebody gets clipped by the rear end,
Which
those are
is
amazing.
truly one of my guilty pleasures. It's me and Phil. We exchange. Those will be the late night, like I can't sleep, and you get into them, and Phil will send them, and I'm like, "Oh, dude, I'm already looking at one of these." I'm like, "Check this one out," and then I'm sending it back. What a body can withstand the impact and the way it can ragdoll and flail.
Not only that, but I just can't believe how they are so easily caving quarter panels. Like you would think, it might put a dent in it, but like, no, it looks like it was in a serious accident.
I'm just amazed by, no matter the car, they're pants eaters. Like
the pants coming off is the best.
Pants are coming off.
And the distance on the shoes.
Yes.
Like they hit the moon every time.
It's one thing when the pants come off because of the tire rotation. It's one thing, but when momentum pulls the pants
just
off,
knocks you out.
Dude, when they just cartwheel and it's ragged on, the pants go and the shoes go, and it reminds me like when you were a kid and you just like fell off your bike and you jump up. I'm right.
Good.
And you look down, you're like, oh fuck, dude, go get
white
mom,
meat.
go get mom,
It's
go
white.
get mom.
It's white.
It's so bad. Yeah. But they jump up. It must be just like the impulse, right? The reaction,
Adrenaline.
Gotta look
before
cool.
they realize that their femur it's a compound fracture and their
Gotta be
femur's
hurting.
sticking out the side of their fucking skin.
It never slows the drivers down, though. They never
They just
stop
keep
and get
going,
out to see
yeah.
if anybody's okay. It's just
I'm resilient.
continue the donuts.
Some of those little skinny girls too. I mean, they are durable.
Yeah, it's
Flying out
a
the
big
windows.
it's a big problem. Honestly, shouldn't be happening.
I've only seen, we don't see a lot by us, but I did see on 83 and Gilmer Road, somebody was just cutting. There was a whole shit ton of donuts in this major intersection there.
Downtown's gotten
Yeah, you can tell
Bad.
where they've been. I know
Yeah.
Real bad.
it's been bad in Kansas City. They've been cracking down on it pretty hard.
Really?
It's been in the news 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it's just gotten to be a.
Not great for the rest of the car community.
No, it's not great at
Yeah.
all. It's
So now you got a taste of like how these podcasts. This just gets wildly derailed, and this is the thing. Be prepared for another 2.5 hours of this. But we'll get to what you've done and where you've been at some point during this.
So we got a lot to get through, and I hate doing it the cliche way, but I think specifically for your story, that's the way we need to do it. So born and raised in Nebraska. So we'll start there.
I knew that was coming. No, not quite. Nothing against Nebraska, but I was born and raised in Kansas.
Kansas.
That's a major rivalry there, is it? Sports?
Not really.
No.
It's more so because me and Phil have
bullshit.
always just said it's basically the same state. It's just a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
nothing out there. It's like, what's the difference? Nebraska.
You know what's funny about
Right
that
by
is-
Indy Leach, they're kind of
Yeah.
similar area.
Yeah, and that's what's funny about that is somebody I had texted. It was a year or 2 ago. Oh, it's Chris Saunders.
Okay.
I had texted him about a question about a dash, and he goes, "No, he says I never find those." He goes, "But if you find some in a barn in Nebraska, let me know." And I'm like, "Man,"
You son of a bitch.
I'm like, "I don't know if you heard that on Oil and Whiskey or if you think that's where I live." But
That's our
Set
reach.
you straight.
That's our
Yeah.
reach.
yeah, that's the reach.
So born and raised in Kansas. At what age? I mean, because you're so multifaceted and talented. What age did you start, like, looking at the automotive world? How early?
6.
Yeah, this
I know
is
that sounds weird.
This is
but-
definitely, no, I knew this was going to be a story of a young Josh Mishler drawing cars, looking at cars. It's
In some gosh little overalls.
Oh, you know it.
6-year-old.
Yeah.
We're the
You know it.
same shirt I was wearing the other
It's exactly the same shirt.
I hate to say it, but I know I know there's a lot of pictures of me where as a kid, my mom was always like, "You love those," but they were like a pair of shorts and like a button-up short sleeve, and they had this crazy pattern on it that went from head to toe. And
Yeah.
It's like a
you know-
romper, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't quite a romper because it was a pair
It
of
was
shorts.
separate.
Yeah, it was separate.
But it was a
I want to
set.
clarify.
It was
wasn't a-
separate, but yet a matching set.
Yes. Yeah, but it was Oshkosh.
Little beard, a little thinner back then. Probably.
Less gray.
Yeah. What's crazy is like I see pictures of when I was little like that, and I was just like toe-headed, like white,
Yeah.
And I don't know where that went, but
The hot rod industry took it from you.
Don't worry, you'll be
I
back
know,
to
I
white
know.
haired
Yeah,
here
I
soon.
know. I'm not that far away, if I have any left by that time. But
So, parents, grandparents, what when they were? Who was?
Yeah, the whole-
what
I'm-
at 6 years old?
well, kind of the whole family. I mean, my dad's always been very mechanical. His dad taught vocation mechanics, and then my mom's dad, my grandfather, on that side, he was a hot rodder when he was in high school, and then he was restoring cars when I was a kid for himself. And when he finished restoring his car, then I started going to car shows with him. And the first time they took me, my grandparents, they were going to it was like an antiques restored show that was in Arkansas. And they asked if, I wanted to go. My mom was like, I don't know. He ain't never been away for overnight and all that. And to say the least, it was, it was kind of like, hey, you need to call your mom now and talk to her for a few minutes. But
Tell her you're okay.
yeah, it was all right. And ended up having a lot of fun. It was funny, though, because at first, kind of the story I've told before is the first thing we did was we had to go walk the swap meet to see if there was anything that was needed. And that got really old real quick at 6. And I was like, I'm done looking at junk. And he goes, my grandfather was like, we're not looking at junk. We're looking for treasures, man. We're hunting treasures. And then I was like, all right, let's go hunt treasure. And then that was like all it took. And then I was back out looking. And but that was kind of like the first core memory of going to a car show. And that was completely different crowd than what this is, because you go out there to the show field and it's like nowadays I wonder where all those Model Ts went, because I remember just rows of Model Ts. I know most of the A's are hot rods now, but
And there wasn't a lot to differentiate them either.
oh
right?
no,
I mean, there was limited options, and there was
black one. And
Yeah.
color. Black one.
Yeah. I mean, and it was funny because my grandfather's car was a 58, and that was like
driving
pretty
a new car.
new
Yeah,
for the group, even though that was 88, 89.
yeah, still,
Chrysler.
it's a modern
Yep.
car.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that love affair comes from because, you don't meet a lot of people that are into Chryslers, but that's,
Especially not as big as you are.
yeah, I love them. I mean, it's a sickness, but I like a lot of stuff. I mean, my interest is a pretty wide spectrum, but where that soft spot is, that, kind of gets you every
Came from
time.
there.
Is definitely anything 55 to 61 Chrysler.
What was Gramps' exact car? What did he have?
He had a 58 Chrysler 300D two-door hardtop.
Okay.
So they made 618 of those.
That's what I was going to guess. Yeah. 6 or 7. I thought, yeah.
Right around there.
Right in that neighborhood. 392 dual 4 full race cam, solid lifters, adjustable rockers, straight from the factory. So
Damn.
it was a
Nasty
car,
motor.
Yeah, the car was sold as the banker's hot rod, was how they marketed it, because it was incredibly expensive. By comparison, a Cadillac was cheaper, and
Wow.
a Cadillac had a warranty. Chrysler didn't, and most people bought those cars like as a status type thing, and then instantly got rid of them because, you're sitting in traffic and the thing's got a lopey cam in it. You're like, this is not a commuting car,
Sitting there chopping at the stoplight.
But that was kind of where it started.
Well, usually I go into like, when did you actually start realizing that you wanted to do it for a living? But I know enough about your origin story to realize that you started that shit out pretty fucking early, like real early.
Yeah, one of the things my dad would always say is, if you can find something you love and figure out a way to make a living at it, you'll never feel like you work a day in your life.
That's bullshit.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, believe me, I love I love everything I've done, but there's been days when I was working, worked many days.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. So I always kind of knew that I wanted to do something automotive related, and I had been into art and got into photography, and we went to Peoria, Illinois in '94 for Americruise when it was there, and I borrowed my mom and dad's camera and took a bunch of pictures and got them developed. And I remember we were sitting at the table at my grandparents' house, and some of their friends were over, and they were kind of looking through the pictures, and there was one I'd taken of like the tail fins at night, and my grandfather's friend Paul, he was like, "Yeah, that's like a magazine quality photo. That's really good, And then it was kind of like, light bulb. Like, I like going to car shows. That would probably be a way to get paid to go to car shows, is if I took the pictures of the cars that are in the magazines. And
Ding ding.
at that point, it was kind of just like a, oh, that'd be cool, but didn't really think that much about it. So, fast forward a couple years, we're at Good Guys Des Moines, which we used to go to every year. And I'm trying to think what year this would have been. This would have been probably 95, somewhere in there. And we were at the show, and Steve Anderson walked by, who was the editor of the Gazette at that time. And I was like, I bet he's a magazine guy. I bet he can tell me, because he had the camera and everything, I bet he can tell me what you got to do to get here. So I stopped him, and he was really nice. And I was like, well, what do you have to do to get a job like this? And he's like, well, you got to know somebody. And it kind of laughed. He's like, that's how I got it here. I was like, oh, okay. So he was really open. He let me walk around with him and ask him a million questions. So I bugged him, and he was super nice. Gave me his business card with his phone number on it. He's like, if you ever got any questions, just give me a call.
Damn.
You think is that the same way it goes down in like the hip hop and entertainment industry? I've been seeing a lot of like little things on
With Diddy and stuff.
Yeah, it's that same scenario. Like, oh, dude, call Pac. Diddy. He'll love to tell you about.
I'm sure very similar, but yet wildly different.
Okay. I didn't
for the barrier of entry.
Fair assessment.
Just trying to attach it to current events.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so-
wouldn't.
Yeah, so it was me and Tupac and Biggie, and but so then let's see. After that, kind of decided I need to start figuring out what it takes to shoot a car and things of that nature. The car that my grandfather had been photographed 2 times and was in different Mopar magazines. And one of the guys that photographed it was from St. Louis, and he had stayed in touch with my grandparents. And I got his phone number and called him and asked him, what's the spiel on how this goes? And his name was Daryl Arment, and Daryl was like, well, yeah, you basically you get your lighting like you want it, get a good location, shoot some front 3/4, rear 3/4, your details, and this is back in the day you shot slide
Photoshop
film.
the rest, right?
Oh no, not back then. Yeah, this was like, he's like, yeah, you're gonna want to get Fuji Velvia, which was a slide film that everybody used. Like everybody in the magazine industry used Fuji Velvia then, and he's like, it's got the best color, and that's kind of what everybody uses in the industry. I was like, okay, and so he's like, why are you asking? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna try and shoot a car. And he's like, okay, and he's like, well, and he's like, I'll always help you if you need anything. I was like, all right, I appreciate it. And so let's see, before I actually shot that, I had talked to, when I was in high school, I was doing a project on what you wanted to do for a living for one of our communications classes. And you had to interview somebody who had the job you wanted. So I called Steve, and Steve was like, yeah, I'll let's run through it. So asked him a bunch of questions. He answered them, get done. And he's like, so you're kind of serious? You really want to do something? I was like, yeah, I'm serious. I was like, how would you like to write a column for the Gazette from the youth perspective? And I was like, well, it's kind of wanting to photograph, but
If this is what it takes.
if this is what it takes, yeah, I'll write. And so he's like, all right, well, great. He goes, why don't you write something and send it to me? It needs to be, I don't remember how many words it was, 500 or 1,000. And he goes, well, maybe try it every other month and see how it goes. I was like, okay. So I wrote an article, sent it in.
Is what age?
15, about to turn 16. And so he's like, got it, great, runs it. He's like, we're going to do it every month. Gary loves it. I was like, oh, cool. So started doing that, and figured, okay, this will be a good intro to taking pictures, be able to tell editors and stuff. Well, I write the column at the Gazette.
Gets your foot in the door for
Yeah.
sure.
So decide I'm going to, I pick out a car I'm going to shoot. Guy agrees to it. And that's one thing that, I owe a lot of people thanks that let me shoot their car when I started, because none of those ever made it to print. But
What are you telling them? Like, hey, I'm shooting it and I'm trying to get it
I'm
in a
trying to
magazine.
get it in a magazine. That's
Gotcha.
all I can promise you, is that I'm trying. I can't, And so the first car I ever shot was a 37 Ford convertible that was owned by a guy named Ed Harbert. And he was in Lee Summit, Missouri. And if I remember correctly, I think Roger Berman had started the build, and then this guy bought it, and he finished it, or he had some people finish it. Like I said, I can't remember all the details, but he was awesome, took all the time in the world, let me photograph it, and, wrote the story and would send it as a package deal, to these magazines, because that was what Steve Anderson had told me, and that it was what Daryl had told me. They're like, look, if you can present it as a package, they're more likely to take it. Because if you just send them photos with a text sheet, they're less likely to accept it. I'm like, okay. So try my hand at writing. And of course, it probably had a bunch of cliche stuff in it that doesn't sound that great today. But would send it in and then wait and wait and wait. And then eventually I get it back in the mail. I was like, bummer. So then you'd send it to another
Turn the
editor.
sender stamp on it.
Yeah. You send it to another editor. And I think one of my earliest mistakes, I think I told you recently, was I got it back from the first one I sent to Street Rodder, and they sent it back. It didn't want it because I think at that time they were like, we've got a lot of 37s, which was kind of the case during that time. It was like there was no shortage of 37 Fords, and I was like, okay. So I was like, I'll try Rod and Custom. So I changed the address on the letter and mail it out to Jeff Tan at Rod and Custom at that time. And it comes back. And then when it comes back, I look at it and realize that I did change the address, but where it says, hi, so-and-so, it still said Brian for Street Rodder. So I was like, yeah, that probably didn't help much. But so I shot that car. There was a local guy had a really nice 55 Chevy. I shot. Didn't have any luck there. And then I shot a Studebaker sedan that a guy built that was really nice. Got a lot of coverage when it was done, but I hadn't found a good look to the photography, which is what it was lacking.
Was it
The Studebaker?
Well, was it the cars at this point, or was it the photography?
I mean, I think I was picking really good cars.
Yeah.
I just think I wasn't
there yet.
I just wasn't there yet.
You hadn't found the hook.
No. And because I didn't quite understand a lot of the technicalities of it that I needed to know.
Is it developing your style or just general photography skills? Like,
I think it was.
You look at each guy, like John Jackson's got obviously he's got his style. McGaffin, he's got his style. Everybody's got their style.
But even then, at the heyday of the print media, it was just as much about what sells a magazine as it is about good photography. Like
that
color,
yeah,
the choice of car, style, like all the other things that are going around.
Yeah, there was a lot of factors, and but I always tie it back to my lighting just wasn't that good. I know it wasn't that good now. At the time, I didn't know any different. I thought, because the other thing was, and it's not a knock on any of those guys, but like if you looked at Rod and Custom at that time, most of what Jeff Tan shot was in bright daylight. Most of what Eric Geisert shot at Street Rodder was in bright daylight, which it looked good. I mean, that was what they did. I didn't do that so well. And that's kind of when I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm missing that's not going right. So when I graduated from high school, my mom and dad were like, hey, you want to go on a trip? Where do you want to go? You pick wherever you want to go. And I had never been to Good Guys Indy, so that was where I wanted to go. I'm sure my mom was like, really? That's where we're going?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. We told you could go anywhere, and we're going to go to Indianapolis. I'm like, yeah.
What the fuck is wrong?
Yeah, exactly. No, I always wanted to go to Good Guys Indy, and at that time,
That was pretty good back
that
then.
was
heyday.
That was back when it was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's like late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, it was the year I went was 2000,
Oh,
and
As big as
it was.
you could get.
I mean, I couldn't get over it. I mean, you walk through the cars that were waiting to get into
Yep.
the pros pick area, and it was just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It was like the baddest of the bad.
See the fucking lines that were just like never ending of killer cars waiting to get in.
Boyd shaking everybody's hand that comes in.
Yeah.
Yep, doing his little point leg.
Yeah.
He judged them all when they were coming in. I just know it. He was like, yep, you can go down there.
Yeah, you go over there.
I'm not going to walk down there and look at it.
Park your shit back.
But so right around that time, well, it was at the same time, basically, Buckaroo Communications started. And we were before we went to Indy, I went to a car show, and I stopped at a gas station, and their newsstand had Super Rod and Street Rod Builder on it, premier issues. And I picked them up and was like blown away.
Yeah.
And I mean it. I mean, like at that time,
They were
That-
cool.
It was that was
was-
a different level.
that was like, oh my God, look at this magazine. It's color from front to back. Nobody's doing that. And the thing that like resonated with me was when you opened it up on that first issue, they had a picture of everybody that was involved there.
Oh.
So it was like, I remember Scott Colleen and seeing Scott Colleen's picture, so I knew what he looked like, because that was one name I instantly recognized. I knew that when I looked at magazines, the images that I thought were the best were being put out by Scott Colleen and Steve Coonan. Now, Coonan was running the Rodder's Journal, which he had started in like 94, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's another one. I can remember the first time I found a Rodder's journal was,
Now you got yourself an adult book.
yeah. And that was,
Scared
yeah.
to bend the pages.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't hardly even open them, and, and that's weird because you can remember weird things like that. But like, I remember being at the Americruise and Giuliano's having a booth there in 95. And they had the first 5 issues for sale and just being like, yep. And then, they were like display. Like I didn't actually look at them.
Yeah.
I just kept them, it'd be like, what magazine's that? Don't even look at it. Don't even think about
It's a
it.
first edition.
Yeah. So when I seen that, I was like, I'm going to remember that. And if I see Scott, I'm going to ask him how he makes his stuff look so good, So we go to Indy. I'm walking around and I'm in some vendor's tent looking at something. And I just kind of look across and I'm like, there's Scott. I recognize him. He's got the big Buckaroo B and he's carrying a camera. And I'm like, I got to talk to you. I'm like, you're Scott Colleen, right? And he's like, yeah. And so I kind of go through the whole spiel, and he's like, yeah, if you want, just put together a few pages of slides and send them to me. I'll give them a look, and I'll give you some notes. I was like, okay. And he gave me his card, his address, and everything. Go back home, pick some of the stuff that I thought was good, and send it to him. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, I get the slides back. I get a letter that basically is like, you should really consider buying, X, Y, and Z filters. Try shooting lower light. My stuff's usually in lower light, which makes a difference. And, stick to clean backgrounds. A lot of that stuff. And I was like, okay, so do some more shooting, getting a little bit closer to getting it figured out, but still not quite there. And I shot. At that point, I was just dying to get anything in print. I mean, and somehow or another, and I am sorry, I don't remember who it was that got me connected up with them, because I would like to thank them too. But I got in connection with Promotion Publications, which had Northern Rodder and Southern Rodder, which they're not Street Rodder, they're not Super Rod, but they were willing to print my stuff.
Yep.
And that was all that mattered.
What a great time, too, to have two different magazines. We got the Northern Rodders and the Southern Rodders.
That was always funny because it was like, I don't know which one's it's going to go in, because
Well, it sucks, so let's put it in Northern Rodder.
yeah. So there was a guy local to me that had a really nice 39 Ford Standard 2-door sedan, and they had seen it somewhere, and they were like, would you shoot that? And it was so different because it was like, they didn't want slides. They wanted prints. And like, they would send you a roll of film.
Really?
Yeah, and you'd like shoot the roll of film and send it to them. And it was like, I hope that turns out, and I hope they're happy with it. And so I shot a bunch of stuff on this car, and even like now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, that's garbage. I was so proud of it, but it's like, that was garbage. And so we go to Good Guys Des Moines again, and the people from Promotion are there. They've got a booth, and they're like, hey, you want to see the new issue of, and I don't remember if it was on Northern or Southern. I think it was on Southern, and it was on the cover, and I was like, oh my God, I've made it.
Oh, wow.
I have made it.
No warning or nothing. They
Did they
just
send you a copy?
Yeah.
Nope. They're like, here it is. And, open it up, and I'm like, so excited, Big
walking
pay-
around with chest popped up.
Big payday. Not so much, but,
What's something like that pay?
back then, God, what was it? They were like,
$25.
nah.
They're like 4 digits, 3 digits.
It was like, I want to say they were like $200.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Hey,
it was $200.
you get
Money's
paid,
money.
and it's the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
you get paid. Just making sure everything's good.
So they're like, we want more stuff. And I was like, right on. So then they had me doing event coverage, and which was easy because I didn't have to write any captions or nothing. They're like, just go shoot the pictures and send us the rolls. I was like, okay. So I just go shoot the pictures, send them the rolls, and that's what we did. And I started, let's see, I shot cars at Des Moines, and same type of deal. Same time, I'm still trying to, because I had no like guaranteed commitment to them. I'm still trying to freelance other stuff. So I'm still shooting stuff on slides that I think is good enough to be in a magazine. And that 1 year at Des Moines, there was a guy from Wichita named Carson Chatwell who had a Mercury that was...
That's a name.
Yeah. That was top 5 for Custom Rod of the Year. That was when they still did it there. And that car was originally built by Dave Stuckey, and I want to say it was the 70s, and it won King of the Mercs back when the Merc Deuce reunion was a big thing. And Carson had kind of redone it and made it more modern, and he did a great job on it. And I was like, I think Rod and Custom would run that. I know they would. So Carson was really accommodating because I shot it on film for Southern Rodder, and then I shot it on slide film and started pushing it towards Rod and Custom. And luckily that feature got through to Rick Amato, who was at Rod and Custom at the time. And he was like, this is some of the better freelance work I've got, which was nice to hear. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I want some more details. Could you get me some more details? I was like, I guess. So, you know, that always reminded me of, like, you'll hear somebody talk about being in a band and like loading $1,000 worth of gear and driving 300 miles and, you know, making $25, you know, and that luckily, you know, my dad was like, I was in college at that time, and he's like, I'll come by and pick you up and we'll drive down there. So, you know, props to Mom and Dad for always supporting.
I got to go down and get more shots.
Get
of this
more
thing.
pictures. Like,
Yeah.
Like, didn't you already take, like, yeah, but it wasn't enough.
What are they thinking this whole time? Are they encouraging you through this? Or are they like, hey, I don't know, you know, you might want to look at other options?
My parents were always incredibly supportive of it. It was never like, you know,
What are you in school for?
Art. So I went to, I started out going to Emporia State because I had seen the work of this photographer that I really liked. And my high school photography teacher's like, you know, he teaches at Emporia State. I'm like, get out of here, really? And I mean, his stuff was beautiful. Like, the colors were vibrant. Yeah, but I mean, he was shooting landscapes, and but they were just phenomenal. I was like, I want to learn from that guy. And then I went there and found out that, you know, probably not. I mean, I don't want to bash the guy, but it just wasn't the experience I was expecting, you know?
Don't meet your idols.
Yeah. And so I was like, that's it. I got to get out of here because this is not working. So I ended up transferring to Washburn University back in Topeka, where I was from, and really liked it there. They had a great photo department. And so I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts there, but focused everything on photography. And so I'm doing that. So I'm going to school doing that and then trying to freelance work on the side. And so Rod and Custom runs the magazine, or runs the issue with the Merc in it. It comes out great. That leads to another feature that I shot that ends up in there. I ended up having 3 features in Rod and Custom, and that would have been 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. And then finally got one in Street Rodder, but it was they used to have a deal at the back called the 4-pack, where it was like a feature but not really a feature, because it was 4 cars and then like 1 page. I got that, which was better than nothing.
Who's the editor of Street Rodder at that era? Is it Brian?
Still Brian Brennan. And
The gatekeeper.
yeah, he's been, and he was always great when I got to Buckaroo, because I always tried to be really friendly with everybody, because you know,
you never know.
Like you guys have talked on here before, there's no reason that any of us should be.
It's not like Anchorman when the news.
Yeah. It's funny though, because sometimes I'll get into this later, but like when Super Rod, when I was working full time for them and Street Rod Builder, it did feel like that at times, because it was like, who's going to get this first? Now, we never had any of them cool brawls like they had in Anchorman, which I would.
The magazine, like, you know, Licking It That's Mine was so crazy back in the day. Like, oh, I heard you were going to have so and so shoot it for this magazine, so we can't touch it, or
and what they would make the builders feel too, especially younger build, like they know that they can, and like, well, I mean, I know you already said so, you know, but if you say no to Street Rider, you're like, you realize you're
You're
done
dead to me.
Yeah, you're done. I mean, not saying Street Rider in particular, but I mean, magazine like that, and you're like, oh fuck, what do I do? I'm like, you want to be honest. I already told the other guy, but in this magazine, you're kind of like, well, maybe it is better. I mean, if he's telling me he's like going to make or break our career, like, what do you do?
It was pretty crazy. And I mean, that was the thing was, you know, it was, if you wanted to get a lot of the like big high end cars, I mean, they were like, can you guarantee me a cover? And I'm like, I'm not guaranteeing you jack, but I can promise you it's got a really good chance. You know, and they're like, nah, you know, they're promising me a cover.
Yeah.
And that was just something we didn't do.
Right.
And one time I was like, you're going to get on the cover, because I desperately needed something to shoot. And that's what it took. And so then when I send it in, I'm like, hey, this car has to be on the cover. Like, I don't care if you have to hold it 3-4 months. It's got to be on the cover.
Do 2 covers, but it's going to be on the cover.
It's got to be on the cover. And
it's a crazy era. It's actually the time when I met you, was that like 2003?
Yeah.
2003 or 2004. And that was how I met you, was this competitive, who's going to shoot the car. So we brought out a 32 Roadster, and this was brand new to me because, you know, I'd never built any sort of high-end car, and this car comes out and it's getting all this attention. And the magazine guys were like swarming. And I remember, I think we committed it to Street Rider.
Yeah.
And then I met you, and you're wanting to shoot it. And I don't know if I don't remember exactly how it all went down, but I know I felt really bad that I didn't give it to you. I met you, I liked you, we talked a little bit, and then I was like, I just didn't know how to handle the situation because I'd committed it somewhere, and I'm like, fuck, but like.
That whole time was just, it was weird the way everything functioned. But yeah, I remember that because you guys were in Springfield, Missouri. And you had it was the maroon, the burgundy, And it was funny because Gary McWhirter that I worked with at Buckaroo, he traveled around our shows, and you know, I'd get to town and I'm like, so what have you seen? And he's like, the guys at Roadster Shop brought a car that's really, really neat. It's a 32 Roadster. And I remember he goes, you should go talk to them. They're young like you. And I was like, okay.
They're young like you.
But so.
Yeah, we got off. We got.
So okay. So got a couple of features in finally, and at that same time, I'm still doing stuff for Northern and Southern Rodder, and I go to Detroit because they wanted coverage of the 50th for Detroit. So again, I drug my dad into something, and he was working for a water and ice company at that time, and he was like, you know, there's a machine in, I don't remember where it was at, somewhere in, I want to say it was in Illinois or Indiana. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it was Iowa, but it started with an I. And he's like, I can go look at this machine as part of the trip, and then we can go to Detroit. So, you know, my dad forked over the money to get us to Detroit so I could shoot the event. I wanted to go because it was the 50th. I knew Chip Foose would be debuting Grandmaster there, and I wanted to see that car because I had heard about it. And this again, just like
this is an era.
This is the other thing that I always want to. There was a lot of people that were really nice to me that didn't have to be back then. You know, one of them was, you know, of all people, Steve Frisbee, that had Steve's Auto Restorations, because around that time, he had brought that black and orange Nomad he did that Foose designed. He'd brought it to Des Moines, and it got beat by Intruder that Troy built. And, you know, that was pre like social media and internet, so all you kind of heard was what people said at shows. And, you know, there was a lot of people that were like, I don't know if that should have won. You know, I think that Nomad was, you know, and so he was obviously that. So I just like sent him an email and was like, hey, you know, tough break. That car's cool. You know, you know, both of you guys had great cars. You know, it was just kind of I like what you're doing, basically. So,
are you sure? Is that exactly the way you worded it? Or was it like, fucking Troy's car?
No,
Like, you got robbed.
The one thing I always remember about looking at Troy's cars,
Which car is Intruder? I don't remember.
it was the '57 Ford wagon he did for Poteet. It was like a
Peach and black, right?
Okay,
it was like a silvery champagne and orange.
Yeah, the orange was like pale.
Yeah. The peach and black was the Rambler he did in the
Rambler.
mid '90s. But
Your memory just got one upped.
I did. It did.
it's okay.
Yeah, I'm starting to
I
put
do
this
remember the
together. That's
ranch
why
wagon.
the two of you get along so well, because you can recall like fucking.
Oh, he's Rain Man.
yeah, you've got
Full blown Rain Man.
a hell of a memory.
Yeah.
man.
I'm
Trying to remember. Was it like 2003 or 2016 when I met you? And I don't know if it was a 32 Roadster. It might have been a Chevelle.
Was it in Florida or California?
But he started emailing me back and forth all the time, and honestly, I don't know where I was going with this now.
You reached out to
is
him,
he
you're gonna
is he
shoot
at
his
Detroit? Is he at Detroit when you show up?
I'm trying to think. Oh, that's what it was. So one of the things Steve Anderson did was he had given me phone numbers for because he knew I really, at one point in time, I thought I was going to go to Art Center and be a car designer. And that's what I wanted to do for a long time. So when I was pursuing the whole magazine thing with Steve was like, hey, here's Chip Foos's phone number and here's Larry Erickson's phone number. And I don't think I ever got up the courage to call Chip Foos. I did call Larry Erickson, and he was really nice. He probably doesn't remember it, and that's cool. Because honestly, I don't remember that much about it, but I just remember he was nice. And but because of where I was going with all that was because of getting to talk to all those different people. I would get a glimpse at what was going on.
You're in the know.
So I knew that Chip had been working on the Grandmaster and that it was supposed to be there the year before.
Yep.
And then they ended up coming for the 50th. So anyway, sorry for that derailment. Get to Detroit. A friend of mine had a car that they took up there to compete to try and make the grade 8. Dave Jordan from Lake of the Ozark, Missouri. He had a hot rod shop down there. And he still does, as far as I know. He's into bikes more now than he was when he was in hot rods. And he'd done a Willys for a customer, and it had a lot of neat trick stuff on it. And Dave was a good supporter of mine, and we were good friends. And when he got the car done, he was like, hey, you should shoot it. I was like, I want to shoot it. So I shot the chassis when the chassis was done, drove down there and shot it. And then when the car was finished, I went and shot it. Now, he was actually done before Detroit, like a month.
Wow.
So I went down and shot the car before the event. And then I had all the photos done. So when my dad and I went to Detroit, I took those with me, and I'm like, I'm going to talk to somebody. I don't know who, but I'm going to talk to somebody. And so lo and behold, he's up there showing, and he's like, hey, the guys from Street Rod Builder and Super Rod want to shoot the car. And I told him you already shot it, so you need to talk to him. So I find Scott and go, I'm like, hey, I got pictures of that car if you want to look at them. And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. So we go in the lounge area, and he kind of looks through everything, and he's like, oh, perfect. He goes, I don't need to shoot it. We'll just run these. I was like,
Hell yeah.
score one. And, but Scott was also good about, these look really good, a few things we can work on. But he's like, the one thing he told me was he says, you got the eye. Like, what angles to shoot, what to capture. He goes, I just want to help tweak your lighting and some of your other technicalities. And I was like, okay. So that same time, we got, anybody who's ever seen coverage of Detroit, there's always like this one overhead shot. It's always from the same spot.
Yep.
Well, I found out where all the photographers were doing that, and I went up there. And Eric Geisert was up there. and he was having. This is one of them funny stories that Eric likes to tell, because Eric was one of the people I approached too about wanting to know, about everything. And we're kind of up there, and he's got a big film camera, medium format, 6.7 Pro 2, and he's having problems with it. And I was like, do you need like a different battery or something? He's like, you probably don't have anything to help. And, then I like opened my case and I got exactly the same camera. I was like, I don't know, I might, And so when Eric tells that story now, he says, I remember being like, look, kid, you don't have, and then been like, oh my God, yeah, you might have what I need. So that was kind of, getting to meet more people that were involved in it at that point. And so that was kind of where the first real gonna do something with Buckaroo started, was right there. And at that event too was John Diana, who was the founder and owner of Buckaroo, and Jim Dalton, who was his business partner. And so kind of met all them.
That's the first time you'd met Diana?
Yep. And so again, that stuff that I was shooting at the event was for Northern Southern Rodder, so they run it. And then I go to they have an event that spring, and I shoot some stuff for them there. Now I'm writing the stuff and photographing it, turning it in. Get to Des Moines that year, and they're like, we want you to work exclusively for us. I was like, yeah, I don't know. And they're like, we'll put you, we'll give you X amount of dollars a month, and you have to turn in 5 features written. And I'm like, I hate writing. It's not my strong suit.
And I think I've got an in with.
And I don't want to jinx whatever I got going on over here. So Scott's at Des Moines that year too. And I'm telling him about this. He's like, don't do it. Don't do it. He goes, what are you after? And I'm like, guaranteed monthly money. I said, because I'm going to school, and if I want to pursue this, I can't have some other job. And he's like, all right, hold on. So he calls John, and he comes back to me, and he's like, I give you this amount of money a month, like a retainer, and then whatever you shoot, just send it to us first. If we use it, we use it. If we don't, you can do whatever else you want with it. I was like, you serious? He's like, yeah. He says, I told John I have that much faith in what you can do. So I was like, whew. That was like a big weight put on that.
Yeah.
Like I got to perform, And so I was like, this is going to be awesome. And it was. I mean, I was going to school full time. I was getting a good paycheck every month, regardless of how much work I put out, which
Sweet.
could have easily screwed that up.
It's dangerous in today's world.
I know. But luckily, because
But you had to wait.
I had
You
that
didn't
weight,
want to screw it up.
I didn't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
This was my opportunity. And I had been raised with a strong work ethic by my parents and my grandparents. And, I come from a long line of people who would have to be nearly dead to not go to work. So I was like, we're going to do this. And so that's when I started trying really hard to get better and better. And I shot, I'm trying to remember. So Scott came to the Kansas City Good Guys event back when they had it that same year. And he's like, so Monday after the show, I was thinking I'd come over to wherever it is you live, and we could spend the afternoon kind of going over some things. I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. But while he was there, I kind of watched how he shot, because up until that point, I still hadn't really watched him shoot and how he shot. So I watched that, and then I was going to shoot a car. So then he kind of watched it, and, he said a lot of things that stuck with me. Like I'd be setting up a shot, and I'd keep setting it up, and he'd come by and he'd be like, are you going to make a career out of taking that picture? Are you going to take it? And I was like, I got you. Yeah. Better keep moving, because, light's precious. And so it was valuable. I mean, and he would always tell me, he's like, you're only as good as your last picture. So don't ever get hung up on like, well, I shot that issue, 5 months ago that was on the cover. Yeah, but what have you shot since then? Yeah. What have you just recently done? Is it any good? And so him coming over and spending the day was huge. He had the choice to go shoot something that day or come spend time to teach me, and he chose to come teach me because he thought it was going to pay off better for him to be able to know that he had somebody else that he could depend on. And so Scott was a great mentor. He would always joke that he was going to tell me just enough, but not enough to be better than him. So, so he's like, you can figure the rest out on your own. But, I'm trying to think. So then after that, Scott decides he wants to do Build Book. And he had approached Diana about doing it under Buckaroo. And John was like, that's the silliest idea.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, I don't see that at all. Nobody's going to want to read one magazine on one car. And the irony of it is, I think about all these high-end cars doing like Slonaker and Detroit and things like that. All of them have to have
a build book,
a dedicated build book now. And he was kind of ahead of the curve on that. And a lot of times it's amazing how many people are like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could get a copy of that book on that car because I like it so much. So I was like, he knew.
Yeah.
He knew.
I remember getting them. The build book stuff.
They were
great.
Kick ass.
It's great.
I think there's one in one of these. Sure, the CUDA one. I think
Is
it's
it?
up here.
Yeah, the CUDA was, I think, the first one he did.
Ring Brothers did one too on the Mustang, right?
Reactor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I wish that would come back. That was, I mean, what a glimpse into like every aspect of car building. There hasn't been anything. There's all kinds of great features and like tech articles and things. Never been anything as good as that follows the whole build of a vehicle.
Dedication's got to be insane, and like the forethought to.
I loved this.
I'm going to spend 2 years taking pictures of this thing before I publish a book and hope it sells at that point.
Honestly, if you the way we're talking about it, it was almost like the print form of like some of these conversations we've had on this podcast of the from a young builder being able to read through and watch through from the progression, because it was from all aspects. You're like, well, that's fucking unobtainable. Like, how the fuck did he even do that? And then there's other parts you're like, oh fuck, I can do that. That's I'm doing that right now, and that's how they did it. And now I'm okay, so I'm doing that part like they are. And then this part, I'm like, I'm pretty close there. I just need to do this part. And then there's other part like, all right, well, one day we'll get to that. It was so much of, from tips, tricks to ideas, more so on the like behind the scenes of the problem solving, the like packaging and the like.
I remember seeing, it stands out to me still to this day, Troy modifying the Flowmaster mufflers in Rogan's CUDA. You're like, it would never dawn on you. It's a muffler.
You can cut that thing open.
Yeah, there's you
what happened?
There's
Everything's
like,
gonna fall out.
It's liquid mercury inside there. You can't open a muffler, right?
But just the fuck it attitude of
there was a lot to be learned. And then the fact, like, there's still something to be said for print. Like, I'm borderline that guy who's like, I got a book. Can I get a book? Because I want that physical copy of things. I print stuff out all the time. Like, for me, it's easier. I'll print out like a 20.
He prints the shit out of stuff.
Yeah, I print some shit. I can run a printer. I can run the shit out of a printer.
I understand the book thing, but you printing things off of it's the weirdest.
Well, I like to print it because I like it in front of me.
That's not a normal thing.
Is it not?
No. That's not a normal.
I write on it. I like to touch it. It's like
one of your weirdest little things.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Is that weird?
You're printing a picture of something you're looking at.
Printer, not a picture, dude. That is ridiculous. If it's like a 15-page, like if it's like a quote or something, or you're looking at like print it out.
That's different.
So
that's different.
Yeah. So take that back.
You put it in files.
Okay, take it back.
Okay.
Take it back.
Well, everybody prints out like important documents and puts them in files.
Okay.
You just don't have near the amount of files that me and Phil have. You've got a smaller bit of
We've
files.
established that. At any rate, I feel like you're more engaged with that, like those build books compared to a YouTube video or an Instagram, like, or even like a quick tech article. It's there. You can flip through it. You can study it. It's in front of you. It's different. I don't know.
You want to know from the print media, as you're talking about print media versus digital, why I like books so much. And this is maybe it's to do with my vision, but there's something, just like I made fun of you about printing pictures out. The weird thing for me, I would much rather go like this than like zoom in on a screen. Like, I want to be able to take the book and look closer at the picture or see something than I do like take a digital thing and just zoom in on it. There's something that I like better about just looking at it closer. Does that make sense?
No.
It's fine.
But it's,
I prefaced it with it's weird. It's weird. There's something I can get more understanding and detail and like process it better with a physical zooming in.
See, what I thought you were headed
Androids, you can't bring those closer? Is there a thing there?
Yeah, you can, but it's just there's something different about it being in print than.
See, what I thought you were headed with that is like, I'm weird because I love the way Wheel Hub smells when it shows up.
Oh,
really?
I love
Journal.
the Rodder's Journal.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's that print.
I've talked to McGavin about what he does to those before he sends them out.
I don't want to know.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't know what that smell is.
I mean, an old book, man, that's a smell. That is a great smell.
Yeah.
Old ass books and catalogs. And
The Rodder's Journal though had the Wheel Hub same thing when that out of the package when it comes in. What did you do when there was damage to it when it came in the mail?
I was devastated.
To the Rodgers.
temper tantrum.
Yeah, I mean, I was like,
wouldn't believe.
there's nothing worse than you get something and you're like, it's already got a friggin' half moon on the cover. How'd that happen?
Those are about the only ones I've saved. All Super Rods I've saved, and Popular Hot Rodding, Rodder's Journal. I had to purge some on one move years ago. I finally like purged,
Gave in?
some stuff.
I haven't done it yet.
Because they were all itemized, and like my wife organized them in like little crates, and she printed out labels and things. But
What's the weight on a tote of magazines?
That's terrible.
It's thousands of pounds, tons. It's tons. There isn't a box that'll hold it. They all blow out.
We are going through that very same problem right now. I've made it through the big move up here and retained
You didn't purge.
everything. Didn't purge a single thing. I held my ground.
Yep.
And now, luckily, I've been able to stash them in various places, so the volume is not abrasive.
You still keep them under the mattress?
They're just the special ones. But now that's became a thing where there's some cleaning out, and she came across several totes of magazines that are now in her way for something that she's wanting to do.
Now they gotta go.
So now it's became a problem. But also, they've been gone for so long, and I like the fact that I have them. I haven't utilized them, and they're heavy, and it's where they are now and how to get them. It's going to be kind of a bitch. And now it's kind of like,
Permanent.
oh fuck, maybe we should just leave those here. Just slide. Can we just wall that section of the closet off? Because it's a lot.
Yeah.
What's the magazine collection look like for you?
Oh, it's
Is it vast?
out of control.
Really?
Yeah. Books, definitely. I'm terrible about books. I have so many books. And that was, the last time we moved, everybody was like, what is in here? I'm like, more books. Oh my God, how many books do you have? I got a lot.
All of them.
Yeah.
Rich
I have many-
leather bound.
Many,
I've
many
read them all.
leather-bound books.
Full of knowledge.
Rich mahogany.
An unbelievable amount of knowledge.
All right, so you're a technically full blown employee now of Buckaroo on retainer.
Yeah, I mean, I felt special. They sent
How
me
much
business
left in
cards.
college do you have?
I think a year.
Okay.
At that point. And, they were really great. I remember one of my best memories is Scott had a back issue, and there was a trip he couldn't take. So they called me and wanted to know if I wanted to go in his place. And at that time, I wasn't a full-blown employee. I was just retainer guy. And I was like, well, what is it? And they're like, well, before GM went broke, they would bring all of the automotive media in for a 3-day event where they would let you test drive cars, and they'd take you to. It started out they'd have a deal at a country club the first night with a bunch of vintage cars. There'd be a lot of important people there, and they'd all speak, and then the next day you would go to their proving grounds and get to test drive stuff, and of course go and listen to engineering speak. And then the last day was that you'd go out to Milan Drag Strip, and they'd have cars there for you to drive. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm excited. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do I do when I get there? They're like, oh, don't worry about it. John and Jim are going to pick you up at the airport, and they'll just take care of
we're
you.
fixing a party.
Yeah. I'm like, all right. So I'm going to get my first real taste of John and Jim. And
So this is like the entertainment industry.
yeah. And so they pick me up, and, you know, whatever. They had their own schedule.
Of course.
So we're going to do what they want to do. Don't worry about what's going on with. So I was trying to remember. We went to the deal at the country club, which was really cool. David E. Davis, who was a really well-known journalist, automotive world, was there. He spoke about one of the cars that was on display. I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like Robert Lutz was there too, but I don't remember. It's foggy. And it's not foggy because anything bad happened. It's just I've done way too much other stuff since then.
Yeah.
I just can't remember all the fine details, but it was really cool. I mean, because at that time, 21.
I mean, this is as big as it gets.
Yeah, and you know, the first day at the proving grounds, they're like, "Hey, do you want to drive our special project?" And you're gonna laugh, Cavalier. And I'm like,
Fuck yeah.
Fucking
like-
Z24.
I'm like, "What is it now?" And he's like, "It's got turbos on it," and he's like, you want to drive it?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, "Okay, some of the rules on the track here is I don't remember how many lanes it was, like 6 lanes." He's like, "The first 2 lanes, 0 to 25. Next 2, you know, this range." And I just remember the top lane was 100 and above.
That's all that mattered.
Yep. That's all I cared about was
Was it just
what is the
100 and
fastest
above,
lane?
or was there 102? Like,
Nope, 100 and above, whatever you wanted to do. And I was like, 100 and above is all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And
Put me in the
See what
adult
this
line.
And,
will do.
and he's like, "Oh, and we police it. So if you are not driving fast enough, they will ask you to move over." I was like, "Okay, no problem."
You ain't got to worry about
Yeah.
that.
So I get in this Cavalier, and I mean, I'm like hammering this car. I feel like I'm abusing it, you know, and it's a stick shift, and I'm hammering it. And he's like, "No, man, you got to like really like make it work for it." You know, I'm like,
it's a Cavalier.
I'm like, yeah. So
you gotta-
I'm like
you gotta
trying, and you know, I'm doing
Tell me
everything
you're
I
not a hairstylist.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I know. And I'm like trying to do everything I can, and then finally we do a couple of laps, and he's like, "All right, let me, you know." And then he gets out there and he abuses it, like "I'm gonna break this thing." I think was kind of his motto was, "We're gonna see if we can break it," and so that was awesome. And then of course, you know, they had Corvettes to drive and things like that. At that time, one of their big new cars was, they had 2 big new cars there. One of them was, remember the Cadillac XLR Roadster?
Absolutely, I do.
Good car.
Man.
Fucking cool car.
And the one
Did
they
not
had,
do good for Cadillac, but it was an awesome car.
Why did it not?
Nobody wanted it. It just did
didn't
not
fit their
I just
sell.
don't think
demographic.
It didn't
yeah.
sell.
Yeah.
of course, the one they had there was, you know, basically like had the Skunk Works package on it.
Yeah.
So it was,
Were those
Great.
LSAs or what?
No, that would have been LS7.
Were they LS7s? I thought they were like a Turbo
Threes?
6.
No, it's full blown vet. Everything underneath is exactly C5 or
That's right.
C6 vet. C6. Now you can't take
it's
the
one of-
XLR
it's one
just
of the
like
Cs.
lives in it.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't take it
C6.
in. I think it was. I don't remember. Hey, but
Hey.
it was either C5 or
LS6 or LS7.
I think it was C5.
Or maybe LSA. Could have been C6. Could have been C5.
LSA wouldn't have fit.
Yeah.
It was.
This thing was like a
Yeah.
Yeah,
wedge.
it could have been LS6. Maybe it was
You
LS6.
get behind the wheel of that thing?
yeah.
But it was great. I mean,
was fun.
just-
Yeah.
I always we were talking about Mercedes the other day, talking about SLs, right?
Dude.
And that level of like, well, that's what a billionaire drives, right? Back as a kid, right? That's
Well, I'm
the
derailing.
epitome.
I'm derailing again because
Go ahead, get after it.
Bring a Trailer. I've been following. I'm an SL 600 fan. SL 500s I like
Yeah.
too, but like the late 90s, early 2000s, that was the fucking pinnacle of just wealth
And excess.
the area that we grew up. Like people were driving those back when I was a kid. I was like, that guy's a fucking billionaire, right?
Going back, I always think that's got to be Scottie Pippen driving that one.
Yeah, but man, I love that. I love the little flares and the wheel fitment and the car. It's got like an XLR look.
Yeah,
It's
it does.
kinda got that
No,
similar
it's-
look to it. But there's one right
long
now.
nose, short
It
back.
was on Bring a Trailer a couple weeks ago. 9,000 mile absolute like showroom new red, which isn't my first choice, but it's got the hard top, lift off hard top, and the convertible top. Fucking mint SL600, so the V12.
Yep.
It's back up again. It didn't sell, but it ends today. It's up in the 50s right now, which is excessive because it's like part of it's a little bit like a joke because it's I don't know.
It's a good car,
but it's also a killer car. But you also don't want to be hung with the maintenance. Of that car,
the problem,
like, you know?
the problem on I've gone way too far down this genre path.
Who do you pull the chip out and send it to flash it?
The problem
This one's
is
already
there's
flashed. It's
it's
flashed,
flashed.
and it's got amps in it. They did some high-end audio, $20,000 worth of audio work, like OG 2000s audio work.
Precision Power. Was it PPI amps?
Might have been.
Or Mac. It would be Mac back.
No.
Anyway, there's a very narrow window of this German Mercedes BMW has so low of miles that everything's fucked because it hasn't been used.
Yeah.
And then this has got too many miles. Everything's fucked. You've got to find it's like
I don't think that's a
28
bad
to 35.
range.
No, 9,000 is not. You come across stuff
It's
and
like
you're
a
like,
Ferrari, same
do you,
thing.
you know, have you driven it like 3 times a year for the last 7 years that you've owned it? Like there's a lot. But then you start going down like all right, well, if you have to fix some of the stuff, let me start going down the rabbit hole of like, all right, fix this wiring. Okay, these and you look at what's behind the things, like door panels of a 600 SL.
You don't fuck with that.
And you're like,
it's a space shuttle behind there.
you've got to be fucking kidding me.
That window's staying up.
It's
bet
I'll
you.
crawl out the top. The door will stay shut.
Just looking at that car, though, I'll bet that car drives phenomenal. Like for a daily driver, I'll bet you the car.
You ever
drives.
sat in one?
I probably have back in like the body shop days.
It's the German version of the Caprice and Buick.
Oh, that good.
Oh, it's that good, but
Better?
but
Like
German.
oh.
It's that good, but it's like, well, hey, thank you. And you want to
It's like a little shoulder rub.
you want to tell the seat like I appreciate it. All right, that's good.
We went down. I've been renting cars on Turo. We go out of town and shit. Me and Phil went down to Florida, so he left up to me to do the rental. And it's just me and him. So I would get something fucking cool. And there was a SL 500, like a 96. I'm like, I'm gonna rent this fucker and I'm gonna surprise him with it because he's not a fan of them. But I knew we were driving like the 200-mile round trip we were gonna be doing. I'm like, it's gonna break down, and I'm never gonna hear the end of this. Right? Like it'll be funny for a minute when Phil's like, "What the fuck did you rent?" And then it's gonna suck when it's like,
if it's made it to that long with that thing, you're good. You just got to keep driving them. You just got to keep driving them. They just can't sit.
sorry about that. But check out Bring a Trailer. Check out it's going tonight, I think. Maybe tomorrow.
Bring a trailer is dangerous. I mean, I don't have the money to buy anything, but I look on there all the time and then get mad when stuff sells. Like I was gonna bid on it. Like, can't believe they sold that.
Stupid fucking rabbit holes of things that I had never seen that before, but
Yeah.
now I like those, and I'm gonna spend 3 weeks
Did you
researching that.
see the red 92 or 93 7 Series Beamer with the V12 on Cars and Bids with the OG 3-spoke Brabuses?
No.
That's only got like 12,000 miles on it with air ride.
Ooh.
It is
Sounds like
fucking awesome.
no maintenance. That's just like a wash
Awesome.
and wear kind of car.
Awesome.
That's another kind of sleeper of a website. Mike is always fucking with that.
Yeah, Cars and Bids. That's Doug DeMura's stuff.
There was when you talk about Bring a Trailer to this stuff, it's kind of like known now for it's hard to find a deal. Everything brings
Good
what
money.
it should or more than it should. But
in the last 5 minutes.
I was randomly flipping through. It's just it's part of my day. You pop it up, just see what's new, and it's got
You print them out, or you just watch? Look at them?
It's gotten so big. There's so many cars on there now. It's hard to
You
keep
can't
track
print
of
all
them.
that.
Yeah, I'm not even going to.
It's fine. Just keep going.
Let that go. So I open it up. There's I believe it was a Lotus Esprit, like late 70s, early 80s.
Fuck a Lotus.
But dude, it had like a powder blue, like almost like Alcantara 2-tone interior, and it went cheap. Like I think it was like $8,000 or $9,000.
Really?
And I was like, holy shit, I can't, it was no reserve, which is not a lot of no reserve auctions. I'm like, it's going to go, it's a $30,000 car at least. and all the comments are like, "Man, somebody stole that! What a deal!" I'm like, man, I just impulse buy.
Yeah, that's the way I am. There's a that's fine. Fuck with me. I don't care. There's a white Civic hatchback on Bring a Trailer right now with the gold wheels and K24 swap, and it's like only like $9,000. I wanted to buy it just to fuck with Tim because I was going to just drive it to work.
I wish you would.
And
please do.
I want to drive it to work and talk about that this is the fastest Honda that there's ever been built. And
I don't even think you need
Have
to
you
buy
got,
it. Now that you've brought it up, you guys will talk about it.
You got photo paper at all? Like for the print? Print out a couple pictures that tomorrow. Bring them down to my office. I want to check that out.
The other thing, did you realize how late they did the Cartier edition on the town cars?
I had one, dude.
No, I'm talking about how they went all the way into the round body styles.
Okay.
The
That
like
is 78
early
Cartier
two. I
edition.
know you did, but they did a 2000s. There's one on Bring a Trailer or Cars and Bids right now with low miles. Cartier edition.
The Cartier edition's like you're talking. That's base model shit. Unless it's the Bill Blast.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the Bill Blast.
Of course
is.
you don't. It's a
What's-
that.
Was that a local? Was that a local thing?
No.
He was
legit.
another designer that had a special edition.
That's a piece of fucking machinery.
Pull one of those up.
Yeah.
Bill Blast Lincoln.
Yeah.
Come on, Jamie.
That's a hell of a car.
Let's see.
It has his own jeans too. It looks like. Oh,
Yeah, the white and blue
oh,
two-tone.
God.
No, the other one.
Yeah, go to the two-tone.
That's like a Rampage.
Dude. Imagine taking your wife out to a nice dinner in that thing. That is talk about a flex at the valet. Dude, I mean,
What?
you don't let a valet guy drive that.
But what? All right.
you
What
slow
made?
roll it through the valet.
Okay, cool. But
You wish
what?
I would stop and you
What
could
did?
drive this.
What did old Bill
I think it
do?
was-
What did William do different?
Oh, I mean, look at the
Look
interior.
at that interior.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And
so
then
it's
it's got a-
same exact
think
interior,
it
just
was-
some piping.
Some kind of
I
inserts.
think it was a Lando. Was it a Lando top?
It's
That's
pronounced
it.
Landau.
Whatever.
That's genuine burl wood right there.
Landau.
Landinus.
You sure it's not a Bimini
Dude,
top?
look at the little crest.
I see that.
In
All right.
there.
Now you get yourself something
Right.
special. Now you got something a little different.
I think they discontinued it due to recalls from people just falling asleep in those seats.
So he was.
It looks like
Yeah,
fucking-
forget
they're down-
Toyota's
they're
fucking
down
throttle pedal
comforters,
problem.
so-
It was just fucking asleep.
This is like riding on my couch.
So he was a fashion designer, Bill Blass.
Was it? I'm trying to remember. Who was it? Was it AMC that did all the?
Z Cavaricci editions.
They
I
did
think
all of them.
AMC did a
Yeah.
Cavaricci.
no, they did. They had the was it
Wrangler.
the
They did
Jeeps.
It. They did a Levi's
That
one.
one. Levi's. Those
Yeah,
were cool.
And there was the Pacer, the Gremlin.
Yeah.
You said, speaking of fashion designers, Bill Blass. Remember when Levi's and Lee did something? that's complete total.
Pull that one up because the Gremlin. Well, try just Gremlin Jeans Edition, then it'll tell you because I forget which designer it was.
Really surprised it wasn't Jordache.
Oh, a little too early. The I could see a Z24 Cavalier Jordache edition.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Levi's AMC Gremlin.
It was Levi's.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta get to the interior. The seats were killer.
Custom badges.
Introducing
Super
CJ.
custom.
in
I mean, the
jeans.
CJ actually is pretty cool. Dude, look at that. That looks like fucking Kenny Davis's
that's-
pants right there. I mean, on the door panels.
That is chicks. That's chicks shit right there. That is.
I drive it.
But I'm telling you, they had other editions too. It wasn't just that.
Yeah, chicks, check that out.
They had 2 or 3 different where they teamed up with somebody else.
Yeah,
you
they
know.
did some crazy stuff.
On the Lincoln.
Anything to push a sale.
What an
Huh.
era.
All right, we got derailed massively.
It's all right, dude.
Hey,
we
it's
touched on
parts.
some
It's
icons
We
of
did.
automotive
We hit
design
some. We
here.
hit some good
I mean,
shit.
yeah. I mean,
All right, so you're rock and rolling. You had a weekend in Detroit. This is very important to you, or very surreal to you. I have to imagine, because of you mentioned books earlier. You mentioned wanting to possibly at some point go in as a car designer. Your knowledge of custom car show awards and the owners of those cars is only rivaled by your knowledge of weirdo car designers of different eras and stuff like that, which is great because we've had so many conversations about that, and it's sparked interest on stuff for me, and I've had to go read and learn more. But I say all that you had read all those stories, and specifically our hero and our idol, Bill Mitchell.
We're talking about Bill Mitchell.
Bill Mitchell, right? The one and the
that
only.
Guy was crazy.
It's the best. There's no other greater guy in car design.
He probably likes the cars, and you're thinking like the cigarettes and the hookers. I'm assuming that's where your head's at, right?
Yep.
That was him. Like he's like, going to lunch, and I'm coming back. I'm gonna smoke a pack of cigarettes. I'm gonna drink some liquor, and I got 3 hookers for later.
Yep.
That was Bill Mitchell.
Secretary, you pay for it. And me and the boys are getting drunk and driving
take it out of petty cash.
I mean,
horse-drawn carriage through the fucking.
And that's one of the things I always imagine is like, what was it like to work? What was it like to work, whether it was in GM's executive offices or design offices in the 50s and 60s when they were like, nobody's better than us.
Well, just think about the waste baskets of the cigarettes only. Imagine the cigarettes a day that go out of the GM executives' offices.
Yeah, every time you see pictures of that,
They're all
Go up to Josh's office. It's pretty similar.
That's how I
everybody
live my life.
They all look like. It's weird because you'd think, oh well, you're designing cars. It can't be too terrible, but at the same time, it's like they all look like they're working traffic control at an airport. They're all like.
There's 7 guys around a drafting table.
Yeah, like one off the other.
It's like.
And they use an ash to start shading things.
That's right. Yeah.
But
I imagine it's because I think a lot of it's because, unlike today, it was okay. I know you're about done with this year, but we got to start on next year because we're not carrying anything over.
Nope. We're talking about
nothing?
the 61 Pontiac out there. That's
the
cool. Guess
craziest
what?
Era of design.
Start over.
Yeah.
We're changing it up.
We are tooling up for a new car.
I mean, you look.
Can we at least just leave the roof? You get 1 more year on the roof, but everything else changes.
Engine, trans,
and then we're doing it in a
suspension.
2-door, 3-door, 4-door, 5-door, a base model.
Yeah. And I want 7 different headlight bezels, 1 for each trim.
Think about that too.
Package.
You've got Tesla that's ran like 20 years with the same
Fucking
design.
30.
You've got like a typical 1500 Silverado or a F-250. It runs for what, almost a decade? Like how long?
And I mean, but that was like something Alfred Sloan had put in place real early at General Motors, which was like, we're going to have a line for every price point, and within that line is going to be a model for every price point.
Yeah.
And it's like,
No, just take things away. This is the cheaper headlight and the cheaper headlight bezel, and this is this trim. Well, just don't do any trim. Nope, it's got to have some trim, just not as nice of a trim.
well, and then that's like, being into Chryslers, I remember, it was like, how come it doesn't have a side view mirror? Well, that was an option. It was like, who was balking over a $2.50 side view mirror,
But I say all that to say you're so knowledgeable on the history of that, and then now you're there with GM executives. I mean, obviously different time and different era, but it's still, you're not even out of college yet. Yeah. And you're like, oh, shit, I'm fucking close.
Yeah, it was very surreal. That was one thing, doing the test track. The other thing was going to the drag strip, because at the drag strip, they're like, you take a car and drive it down the drag strip. But the other thing they had there that day that was dangerous for somebody who was 21 was sign this waiver, which says if you kill yourself, it's not on them. And then you're more than welcome to take any of the cars here and leave the premises and go drive them for an hour and bring them back. Unsupervised, whatever you want to do.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I'll take the Z06 Corvette, please. And that was the first car I went and grabbed. And it was the one I immediately brought back.
Well, apparently they still do that at dealerships, from what you were telling me, which was shocking.
Luckily, you find the right dealer, you can still do that.
Did that car come back in one piece?
Completely
It did come back in one piece, but I had
Police escort?
No, I had scared myself so bad that because where the drag strip's at's kind of out in the middle of country, and so I'd been driving a little while, and I was like,
You know what?
as soon as I turn onto this road, I am going to hammer this car and see what it can do. And I did that and just about put it in the ditch and decided it was time to take it back before I really wrecked it, because I was not going to be able to afford to replace it. And I don't think John would probably be very happy if.
I thought he was, all the stories I've heard, he was a pretty understanding guy.
I think that's a little misinformation.
Easy to work with.
Not really. The funny thing is, remember I told you they had their own schedule. So he's like, I'm going to take you to this guy's place and you're going to shoot his Riviera tonight. Okay. So I usually have I'm pretty methodical about how I go look for a location. I go drive around, things like that. I want the lighting to be right, but I'm not going to get any of that tonight because he wants to go eat dinner, and isn't there something right around here that's good enough? So I'm like, okay. So find a spot that's decent, shoot this Riviera, not like I wanted it, And then he was like, oh, we got a collection we're going to go visit, which was pretty impressive. It was a guy named I think his name was Howard Sullivan. He was in Detroit, but he had a massive collection of Hemi cars, which was right up my alley. And he had, the infamous 71 4-speed 426 convertible, and one of them that he had paid a private investigator to find. But the car that he had that was most famous there was a GTX known as the Silver Bullet that was a street racing car in Detroit area back in the day. And that was one of the cars. So we did a tour, shot it. And I remember we're driving back to the hotel that night, and I'm trying to get some chat time in just to see if I can communicate with either one of them. And I'm like, so you've been pretty happy with most of the stuff I've been sending you? And he's like, yeah, for the most part. That Oldsmobile, though, where the fuck were you on that one? And I was like, that was exactly how he said it. And I was like, oh, what was that? And he goes, that Oldsmobile. He goes, half of it's good and the rest of it's just did you fall asleep and then shoot the rest of it? I'm like, yeah, I know. I said the lighting changed on me pretty drastically. I would have put that car on the cover, but didn't have enough good photography to support it. I'm like, okay. So
super positive guy.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So that, that was always, it's like, if you think you're doing good, there's always going to be somebody to remind you that, and it's
That's
not
the way
like
it needs to be.
Yeah. You get to where you think, oh yeah, I'm doing this. And then you get a reminder like that and you're like, yeah. Still a lot of room for improvement. But, so we go back out to the track, and I'll never forget this because I thought it was hilarious. Him and Jim set up an appointment to talk to this gal with GM. And I don't know what it was about, don't know what it was for, but they had made an appointment with her, a meeting time. And so we're out at the track, and then John's like, hey, we got to leave because we got a flight to catch in a little bit. So you're going to have to go with us, and then you can return the rental car later. I was like, okay. So get in the car, and I'm like, what about that meeting? Oh, yeah, you're going to have to go tell her we can't make it when you get back. I was like, okay. So we go to I take him back to the airport, drop him off, and he gets out, and he's like, oh, you're going to have to put some gas in this car before you return it. Hold on a second. He reaches in his pocket, and he pulls out a wad of hundreds. I'm like, all right, maybe get a little tip out of this, He flips through, and finally finds a $5 bill in there to give me.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So, anyway, go back to the deal. Go tell this gal, I'm sorry, they forgot they had a flight to catch, She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, had to really get back to California for some reason. But, so that was kind of like my introduction weekend with John and what John was going to be like. And for the most part, we had low communication because I always figured if I just kept him happy, then
yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of similarities between like us on road tours and John here, like your hero. I feel like if Ed had to do one of these interviews about like the infamous guys at the Roadster shop, never show up on time. They miss half the stops. They show up whenever they're going to. They leave early.
There's some similarities.
Don't fill the rental car up with gas.
Yeah. Just to be perfectly clear, Bill Mitchell has been my hero. John Diana is somebody that I've never met.
You've modeled your life.
And I've heard, well, no, not at all.
Stories.
I've heard nothing but amazingly
Controversial. Negative?
stories.
You better
Amazingly stories.
you better believe I heard a lot of them when people would find out. You work for John? Man, I got to tell you this.
It's as close to our modern day of the same stories I've read about Bill Mitchell in very similar ways. He wanted things the way he wanted it, and he didn't have no problem doing whatever it took to get there.
He didn't sleep. I know that sounds like, oh, surely he slept. No, he like napped and smoked cigars all the time, and that was all he did. He had a weird sleep schedule. You could always get it in the morning. You'd get up and you'd look at your emails, and he would send these scathing, long emails at 2:30 in the morning, and it'd be like, I stayed up last night and edited 3 books. What'd you sons of bitches do? Kind of like that. Were you sleeping?
I kind of like the fucking guy.
I'm telling you.
And, it would just be stuff like that all the time. And you just kind of get to where you're like, whatever.
He was a big Mercedes guy too, wasn't he?
I don't really know. I think he was a big whatever everybody else was doing guy.
I know Boyd always had. We were talking about SLs. Boyd was a big Mercedes guy.
Oh, yeah.
He was a big body Mercedes. But I thought I remember hearing stories on John.
John had a lot of cars, but he also, it was weird because he would get a lot of really cool cars, and then he would decide to do something to it. And you'd be like, it was kind of better before you decided
That's
to
like
switch those
big
wheels,
body
or-
black Benz and put a red two-tone, like two-tone
Yeah.
at the top, red, silver stripe.
Gold
And
package.
you're real close. I mean,
I've just seen it. It just hit me. Yeah.
real
The
close.
thing, the thing about John was,
Testarossa body kit.
he was in the heyday at Peterson. And
Was he?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like being in that whole magazine world. It was like there was nobody that was bigger than Robert E. Peterson.
How close was he to Robert during the
he
heyday?
was like second. in
Really?
command. Yeah. I mean, he was up there.
Well, he learned then.
But the weird thing is,
from the best.
I have heard nothing but raving great things about Robert Peterson.
I have.
He's like one of the best people on the face of the earth, or was, I should say. And he was so good to everybody. And, John was kind of the opposite. And again, I'm not trying to bash the man. He was, he obviously made his mark on the industry and he gave me a job. He took an opportunity. He took a chance on somebody he knew nothing about that lived in Kansas and paid him money monthly to take pictures. I can't praise him enough for taking a chance on me.
Yeah.
I really only heard the name.
I
know
think
nothing
that
about the guy.
unfortunately, as time goes on, and stories get told, right? Stories get embellished, but also the longer the time goes in between, you forget about the differences in culture and how much we have been desensitized to the way things were done in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even early 90s, specifically in the publishing world, right? Advertising world, right? Mad Men, for example, right? And stuff. But that was the same way. And it's so foreign to a lot of us over the last 20 years. When you hear some of those stories, it sounds like movies. It really wasn't anything that was wild and crazy at that point. It was just the way it was done. To us, you hear it, and it probably is embellished a little bit. You're like, that's the craziest shit I've ever heard. But then when you think about it, you're like, I would watch that movie, and I'd also like to live that life. There's just things it was just done differently.
I can remember some of the stories my grandfather would tell about, going to the drags in 55, 56, and some of the things that he did and his friends or some of the people he knew did. And you're like, that sounds ridiculously crazy. But it's like, that was kind of the way it was.
did.
Yeah, it was what everybody did, and I think that was the same way for, the publishing industry at that time. Peterson was huge.
They ran the fucking world.
They were
U.S.
And John was in a good position there with Robert, and John really admired Mr. Peterson, and he wanted to emulate Peterson. And that was, I think that's kind of one of the things that maybe have got the best of Buckaroo later on, was he wanted to be as big as Peterson, even though we started out with we're going to be a boutique publisher that does, 2 or 3 magazines really well. And before you knew it, we were trying to do 12 magazines.
Is that how many y'all were trying to do it at one point?
Yeah, and we never grew the staff or anything like that. It was like...
So it was Super Rod, Street Rod Builder.
Family and Performance Boating.
Okay.
Which I bet you've never seen.
No, nobody's ever seen that.
Yeah, no.
You don't do performance boating
With the
and family, right?
No.
It's
Not together.
It was a different magazine.
Yeah.
2 different boats.
Truck Builder, Chevy Rumble,
Chevy Rumble, I think
I remember that.
Ford Builder, Diesel Builder. There was a joke at one time that if we were smart, we would go out and lay claim to anything with Builder behind it, because then when we went to get it for a magazine, we'd be like,
You can make some money. Model train builder. I got it.
American Rodder, Rodder's Digest.
I remember American Rodder.
Yeah, and I know I'm leaving something out, but that's when we got to, Peterson Publishing had a semi, so we've got to have a semi.
It was the era where they were getting so specific that rather than there just being Hot Rod magazine, it was getting into like the classic Chevys of the 50s with small block swaps and automatic transmissions.
But only 15-inch tires.
Yeah.
Monthly.
That was
It
like,
got so specific there for a little while.
I remember the first time I was looking at a newsstand and I was like, what's Camaro now? And it was all just new Camaros. It was
Well, it's
like,
different than Camaro later.
Camaro later. But
Weird era, man. It got it really, like, if you look back at it,
Stupid.
It was fucking out of control with the amount.
They
of
did it to
magazines.
themselves. They 100% did it to themselves.
That's tough as an advertiser. I got to be in that one.
That's exactly what. Yeah.
we
which
gotta be
one
in
do
that
you have
one,
to be
yeah.
in?
Yeah, our
We do
advertising
chassis
budget
for
was
Mustangs. We're
nuts.
in Mustang Monthly. Do we need to be in Mustangs and Fast Forwards and Mustang Builder?
Or what about Mustang Weekly?
Yeah.
Is Mustang Weekly like
comes out 4 times more than
Mustang
Mustang
Monthly, or
Well,
is that a complete separate publication?
What was fun was the numbers and the analytics, where it would just be thrown out, and it's like, all right, well, we have 12 magazines, right? We have 10 magazines
Not
for
a
each.
single person reads both. You do
Nope.
the advertising.
Nobody ever
Yeah.
reads both. We have 10 magazines. We generate around 70 million readers each magazine. So that's give or take 700 million people. So like, this is all U.S. Yeah, we don't do anything international. All right, well, we got a problem with the math then, because we got
The only one that I'd say was actually that philosophy was correct with is Carcraft, because that's the one magazine that, like, prisoners, probably mostly prisoners.
Oh, the comment section is going to be great.
yeah. Boy, you love making friends. I mean,
There's a beehive. Let's go kick that.
Let's kick the shit up. Will that thing bite? I don't know. I'm gonna go fuck with it. Hey, and I'm gonna walk it back a little to say that I always wanted to be in the readers' rides of Carcraft as a young man, teenager. That was what I read in that era.
okay.
But as I
He didn't go to prison, so he didn't make the cut.
I wanted to though. Dude.
Get the,
What's funny about Carcraft is I remember, like you said, they're like 2 different readers, basically.
yeah.
Leave me fucking hanging here.
Which
You can back me up. Come on.
No, I'm a back.
All right, thanks, dude.
It's like 2 different readers, and
I'm good.
it was funny because
There's a lot of audiences I'll fuck with, but that's one. You never know. Parole's a fucking bitch.
Troy's Buick, one of the first cars he did it was Hot Rod of the Year, and then it was in Carcraft too.
Okay.
And I remember seeing it in Hot Rod, and it was called Bumungus. That was what the car was called.
Okay, yeah.
So then had this VHS tape that was Hot Rod's top 10 of the year, which I bet that's a rare item. I don't even know if I still have it or not, but this buddy of mine that I grew up with, he liked cars too, and we were watching it, and the Buick came on, and I was like, Bumungous is a killer car. He goes, Bumungous? That's Leviathan. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, Leviathan. And I was like, no, it's Bumungous. He goes, it's Leviathan. I was like, where are you getting that from? Carcraft. He goes, there's an article on it in Carcraft, and I called it Leviathan. I'm like, it's Bumungous. So then he gets the magazine out and shows me, and I'm like,
It's like a Key and Peele skit.
yeah. It was like, we're talking about the same car. It's
Leviathan's a stupid name.
Well,
Bomungus is dumb, but it's better. It's Leviathan. That's all I remember on the end of whatever television shows when we were kids. Remember the production company would go on?
Oh, yeah.
It was whatever, studio.
Viatron.
yeah, Viatron.
Viatron. There was a Leviathan too, I think. Pretty sure. I'll find it. All right. I think we're going to have to take just a little quick potty break, unfortunately. That's fine. It's for everybody, a group potty break. We'll go to individual.
You could just say that you have to use the men's room.
I do, but everybody will take advantage of it. That's the thing that pisses me off. Everybody, if I go to do it, you call me out on it. But as soon as I go down there, everybody else is going down the steps.
It's a capacity issue. We understand. It's fine. We've discussed this.
No, first of all, if anybody's got a capacity issue, you know who's sitting at the table that it's been scientifically proven by the TSA. who's got a
And that'll give us something to talk about when we get back.
All right. Well, we had a little potty break for all involved.
If we stop saying potty, that's just off-putting.
Are you three?
Yeah.
No. All right, restroom break. We all had to take pisses.
Significantly better.
Some of us took longer than others.
It's more empty.
Larger.
Was it a competition?
storage.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's
There's a bad inside joke.
a lot of competition in everything.
Which we've been having situations with.
We've had some situations.
Traveling situations with.
A lot of airline travel comes up on the show a lot, in all of the different nuances.
That's a big topic.
Did we talk about
Yeah, I
our
remember that
experience?
last one you told. So.
No,
No, this is an even better one.
no. So
The moving walkway.
Well, first,
yeah,
we have a TSA issue that's been happening. It started with Josh, and now it's been happening to me. So I don't know what's going
I'm
on.
unable to travel anymore. No matter what apparel I wear, I cannot go through the hands up X-ray without the brightest of red boxes directly on my crotch. So
Do you have bedazzled underwear?
I do not.
He's got a
no.
piercing.
I have tried. I even took the piercing out. It doesn't change. It does not matter what I do. I cannot get through. And it's became a problem.
We were both just 2 for 2
Full on molested.
going through there.
Yeah. And then
Good
now
news is I go through first, and then I can get my phone back out of the X-ray
you
machine
can-
in time to get a picture.
Oh, that's awesome.
Get a whole album.
So recently it's been happening. It's been happening to Jeremy as well. Has not happened to Phil.
Ever.
And we talked to the TSA agent in Kansas City on the last trip, and he let us know the reason why. I'll let everybody be the judge of why you think it is. But I'm just going to put it out to the audience. This was my explanation. They're X-raying and surveying people for trying to smuggle things on, not for the lack thereof of something, right? So if they see something that looks like, oh, that looks maybe abnormal.
Let me just check. It's
Right.
It's probably easier to walk through with a joint in your carry-on versus half ounce or a pound of weed.
Or a Louisville Slugger. Like it's
Take that one on the nose.
But it's unpleasant and it's embarrassing.
it is. They get aggressive with it.
They're getting handsy
It's-
now too, where they're getting like up into your waistband, like actually getting in there.
little aggressive.
Yeah.
What is even more off-putting about the entire situation?
Phil snickering. While
Phil
it's
snickering
happening.
and makes it worse, right? Because then you're laughing, and then the guy thinks, "What the hell's so funny?"
Yeah.
But if you start, this has gotten to be such a thing. I've actually had to start Googling it and seeing what the possible causes or scenarios or fixes for that. there is a couple of different Reddits only on this subject with all different types of opinions about what it is. This is a problem for a lot of men. All kinds of different theories on why. But yeah, go down that rabbit hole of the people that have to travel and the problems there.
I'll tell you what's a bigger problem though. A particular couple had a huge problem.
My goodness. This is at your home airport. This is at Kansas City.
We're going through Kansas City and we're hustling, we're just moving. We weren't later and we're just moving through, and they have one area that it's
the transition that's between Terminal 1 and Terminal 2, right?
It's
the walkway.
Solid quarter mile, if not longer.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yep.
That's not exaggerating, from one end to the other. And there are 2 moving walkways, 4 total because there's 2 on each side, and then there's a massive amount of space in the middle for just free walkers. So there we are, and it's pretty clear, right, left, it's directional. So we're just walking, we get out of the security check, we jump on the moving walkway, and you keep walking on the moving walkway.
This would be our very first moving walkway on the right side going the direction we're going.
And oncoming towards us is an elderly couple, probably in their late 60s, and they are absolutely fucking exhausted, hoofing it, and not hardly getting it.
Elderly makes it sound bad that we didn't help. They were older than us.
Yeah. Older, but not old enough that it's
not
excusable.
Not old enough for us to feel bad about it.
Yeah. Coming against the momentum of the moving walkway.
Struggling.
So wait a second.
Towards
They're walking on the walkway.
On the walking sidewalk, the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And they're almost
it's the
done.
Second one.
That's an
It's the
eighth
second
mile.
one, dude. So they clearly made it through the whole first one, and now they're on and they are like, they're looking at each other. They're not like laughing like we did something stupid. Because if you did, you know what you do? You just stop and you turn around.
Yeah.
And it carries.
You don't
back
have to.
the
You
other
don't
way.
have to turn around. Just stop. Yeah. Just stop walking.
This is a
and it's
committed
over.
thing at this point.
Yeah.
Just stop walking and it's over.
It's oh man.
She was 15 feet ahead of him, and he is. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he made it.
He's still
I
on it.
literally don't think he made it. He was down.
I don't think either one of them knew, because at that,
Oh, they
if
didn't
you're
know.
married for that long, you'd be irate at your
Yeah.
spouse.
Yeah.
But the thing we talked about it. We literally talked about it for an hour before we
were
boarded.
absolutely dying.
Because
I've got video footage.
you imagine the first time you step on it, a mistake's a mistake,
You
right?
got to know something's wrong.
You step on it and you're like, oh, this is a little, and then you're like, oh my God, we're stupid. Just stop, and you can start over.
It'll
At any
take you
point,
right back.
you can stop. You can stop halfway, and it still be better than what you've done.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, they're probably trying to convince each other. We're putting in the work out here.
Yeah.
They put in work. They were sweating.
The only thing that could have made sense, the more plausible thing was it was purposeful. Of like, we're going to get in our steps,
No.
and we're going to go against the grain.
I highly doubt that.
That was absolute. That's not based on the physique. That's not a couple that's used to getting steps in.
Even though it was in Kansas City, they were probably connecting.
Probably.
Either on the Missouri side.
Yeah.
I was going to say they were definitely going to Missouri.
But yeah, the best part of it's Josh's reaction, because he was out front. He's like,
Whoa! Look! It was mind blowing. It was
Like, I
absolutely
can't believe
mind-blowing.
what I'm seeing over
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
other than that, we've been doing pretty good with travel, haven't we?
Yeah, not
That's-
big,
you
but
haven't
big
had any-
issues.
I feel like you've toned it down a little bit. You're not as aggressive lately.
Hasn't been main great. I mean, the one dude didn't understand that lines. He didn't understand the line thing of like what
That was the
we
guy
were
that
all
was
doing.
all up in,
Yeah,
like,
he's
on
hung
my
it up
shoulder.
against your
Yeah.
back the whole time, and then body check me when we're getting on.
Yeah.
That's a problem if you
guys in line?
traveled
He
a
was
lot.
told.
If you've traveled a lot
Yeah,
and then you forget that there's people out there that don't travel all
Yeah.
the time, you get in an airport.
Yeah, but how do they function in life?
You get like really impatient. Like, how can this be so hard?
Yeah. You had one though where a guy was like a fellow traveler,
yeah,
didn't you?
yeah. We had the fellow traveler where somebody did something stupid, and I made a comment, he made a comment, and then we were like, yeah, this is fucking stupid. But that was also the very time that I made the huge mistake right after that.
Oh, that was when you called the guy.
No, that's when I sat on the dude's glasses
Yeah, you've had
because
some
I thought he
bangers.
was putting stuff in my seat. I didn't realize there was stuff there, and I came in hot to just try to move fast and shattered his reading glasses.
Between that and
Luckily, you didn't spill ginger ale on it as
Between
well.
that and just shotgunning a ginger ale into some lady's laptop, it's
It was her ginger ale.
You know,
It
you were
wasn't mine.
talking.
it doesn't matter.
It was my water bottle that hit her ginger ale.
You were previously discussing etiquette when you're on an airplane.
Yes.
In one of your previous podcasts, and it reminded me of that trip I was just talking about where I went to Detroit for GM. It was one of my first big trips, and I had a middle seat, and I remember spilling a beverage on my lap, and like being like, "Well, the guy next to me is asleep. I'm not going to inconvenience him and wake
Just
him.
sitting in it.
I'm the idiot, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit
This is
here."
punishment.
Yeah, so I did that as punishment until I got there, and it was
That's
uncomfortable, but
That's unpleasant.
I learned a valuable lesson about how you handle beverages when you're on a plane. So it was a life lesson.
Yeah.
You know,
Have you done it again since?
luckily, no.
So I learned.
But since you've brought that up, I'll probably do it on the flight home tonight.
It's just
I'll be sitting on a plane going, "Damn it, Phil."
I had one on the last one. It's a little bit of an off-air conversation that we'll have, but just remind me.
okay.
With your AirPods?
No, fuck.
Yeah, dude.
That was a fucking temper.
You're gonna have to
tantrum.
get yourself some old school plug-in headphones.
It's fixed
Just-
now. You had the same thing. You just reacted differently. You spent 35 minutes trying to do the same thing I was doing and couldn't get it to work. You just didn't have a meltdown like I did.
You doing headphones to the seat thing?
No, well, that never works. I always get the one thing that never connects to the other thing. So-
Apple world, man.
Yeah.
Fuck the Apple world.
Just refuse to Bluetooth, but they will never. There isn't a plane in existence that my earbuds will connect to the fucking
Get yourself a good set of jobbers in it, Android, and you can connect to the entire universe.
connect to the
Everything.
space station.
Everything you want to do.
Do you send
I can
faxes
navigate.
from
I
an
can
Android?
get. I can.
Yeah, well, I think the issue is like the 3 other people that have them, there's not that much interference.
You're right. Yeah,
So-
you're right.
I tell you what. I can navigate to places. I can get to the place we need to get to.
You can do that.
You can do that too with an Apple.
No, not well.
He's got the win on that one.
Not well.
yeah,
Several where
Have you guys had
navigator.
some bad experiences with that?
Apple will drive you in circles for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You
Google.
know, now that you said that, I was looking for a place for my son one time, a record shop, and I ended up at somebody's house. So
Yeah.
maybe there is something.
Google
to be
Maps
said
will get you.
That kind of happens with record shops, though.
That is true too.
Could have been a great record shop. You never know.
It's never a real like mainstream business.
Go knock on the door. Is this so and so's record shop? As a matter of fact, it is. You found us. Congratulations.
Come on in. The good stuff's in the basement.
Don't mind those other people tied up down there.
That coffee shop when we were at AAR.
Oh yeah.
We should have. We still should have gone.
I wanted to go. There was
Well,
other people that
once
didn't
again,
want to go.
Mr. Voice of Reason over here. It's
You're
always
trying to find a coffee shop. We had a little bit of time to kill. I put it in. There's a
Dan Gurney's place
Okay.
downtown.
couple miles away, maybe not the best neighborhood, we'll call it. Coffee shop pops up. They've got a great looking Yelp reviews and stuff with all the pictures. So, yeah, we'll go here. Professional logo, background, pictures of all the coffee. And it takes us to a neighborhood. And we're driving around. I'm like, this can't be it. It says take a left here. And it's just all like public housing. We take a left, we drive down. There's a pink Easy Up with a sign with a menu on it right in front of this
I
house.
said, let's go for it. This is probably some good shit. That's where you get the good stuff.
Yep,
That
good
is true.
coffee. If anything else, it's a good great story. What's the worst that could happen? It's bad coffee.
There's probably a lot of bad things could
it
happen,
could
but
get worse.
You're telling me somebody goes through all the effort to create a listing.
I don't think it was going to be the coffee place that was going to be the issue.
Oh, the other people?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. You gotta live. Get out there in the hood.
we should go. We still should have gone.
We should have gone. I'm telling you, it would have been great. All right. Now, full blown magazine, you're rocking and rolling. You talked briefly about, the potential downward spiral from either Buckaroo's direction and or just print media in general was going a different direction.
Yeah, so as I'm getting close to graduating from college, that's when Scott decided he wanted to do Build Book. Him and John disagreed on it. Scott decides he's leaving. I'm like, you can't leave. You're the man. You're my, my mentor.
Yeah.
You can't leave. He's like, you'll be fine. And so I graduate, and John's like, you want to be head photographer? You can be head photographer. And
Cool.
So
That's a great way to start out
got
right out of college.
Good pay, good benefits. Go straight to work, traveling all the time, shooting cars.
You single at the time?
Nope, not married yet, but
Not single either.
committed. Yeah.
Okay.
And I that's probably ruined her on going to car shows nowadays, is because the first year I was working full time and we got out of college, she wasn't working, so she was like, I'll go with you. And that pretty well, she went to a lot of car shows and would even go, we're talking to the same people and seeing the same cars week after week. I'm like,
Oh, just wait.
What?
There's 30 more years of this. It's just-
this is just the tip of the iceberg.
We're just getting started.
So
You think that conversation happened 4 times? Wait
Yeah.
till it happens 150 times.
I'm sure she loved going beautiful places like, Springfield, Missouri, and
Des Moines,
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Pueblo,
Nobody wants to go to
Colorado,
Oklahoma City.
That's what I tell all my
Lincoln, Nebraska.
My friends all bring that up to me because they're like, dude, you've been to like every state. I'm like, yeah, in the shittiest towns of like every state, and I've taken major highways to get there, so I've never seen the cool stuff.
Well, and that's the thing is like you go all those places, and really, what do you see outside of a hotel parking lot and the fairgrounds?
That's it.
And let's not forget the fairgrounds are always in the best part of town.
Of course.
Yep. That's where you put
Most
a fairgrounds
scenic
is in
and-
the safest places.
But so she went everywhere with me for a year, and like I said, I think that kind of wore her out. She still goes. Like, she'll go to Wheel Hub with me this week. We went to, as a family, we all went to Gathering at the Rock last year,
Ooh,
and that
that's
was a
cool.
lot of fun. It had been a lot more fun in a hot rod, but it was still fun. We had a good time.
We weren't invited.
You
We
guys,
were.
We were
You guys
invited.
should
There were no
definitely
photos.
go.
We were invited. They just had no place to stay.
That's like a kind of like a on the gas type thing. Like, those guys have an event figured out.
Oh yeah, I've never heard a single negative thing about it. We've been trying to go. We just don't have a place to slay.
need to
It's
borrow
going to have to be a day trip.
We need to borrow Vinny's van.
It lived up to the hype.
Well, yeah, I guess that'd be a stay for us, wouldn't it? I've heard nothing but just phenomenal things.
in the fall.
Yeah, and it's terrific. They do a cruise thing. Well, I don't want to call it a cruise. It's more like it's kind of more along the lines of a reliability run. They cover 100 miles or so, and you end up in Pawhuska, which is where it's a neat little town. They got a cool place that makes cowboy hats, sells boots, and it's home of Pioneer Woman, which is on Food Network. And
Oh, I know her.
yeah, Reed
The
Rowan.
redhead, redheaded girl, yeah.
So
Got a big farm. It's like that great cooking thing. It's on the TV at the gym.
but yeah,
Shut the fuck up. Just look it up.
Nice cover
that's
up.
really
Look
cool.
it
And then the second day they have it at Willow Rock, which was Frank Phillips' private ranch of Phillips Oil, and so there's a lot of really cool. There's a road that winds back to where there's a museum at, and the museum has a lot of Native American artifacts. Really amazing.
You got any Shoshone arrowheads over there?
Yes, Napoleon. But it's just an amazing collection of stuff. And then they have this show up there, and the road you take to get back there is lined with buffalo and every kind of wild animal you can think of.
That's cool.
And so there's a house there that was kind of his lodge, and then, like I said, the museum's just impressive. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to see in there, but the show's fantastic. It's one day, and it's usually some of the coolest traditional hot rods and customs from all over the country. And that's what's cool about the reliability run is all those cars are out on it, and to go to these little towns and just see nothing but traditional
cool.
hot rods invade it. I mean, it's a phenomenal event. Like, that's one I want to try and make sure I always make from now on.
We say it. We got to do it. We just got to do it. We got to plan it. That's one of the things we got to have to plan in advance. We just got to do it. We can't wait till the last minute. We got to plan it.
Yeah.
We're never going to go.
We could just plan it right now and then find a place to stay and do it.
We could talk about planning it.
Let's do it.
Somebody's bound to cancel their reservations between now and then.
That would also be us.
Jason said he was going to find us a place to stay. So I'm waiting to hear.
Jason will take care of you.
We'll see. We need to go. All right, so you're traveling around car shows. Your wife's going. You're the head photographer. It's full blown. You're realizing you're living the dream.
Yeah, quote unquote, living the dream.
Right.
And it was great. I was really enjoying it. We kind of hinted earlier about who's going to get to shoot what first, which was a big thing back then, because it was. And my kind of take on it was always like, yeah, go ahead and shoot it. Let me shoot it second.
Better.
Because I want to do it better. And that was, which was, not trying to be arrogant or anything, but it was like, I want to see if I can do better.
Yeah.
And on a few occasions, John would be like, yeah, we'll run that even if somebody else has shot it. It wasn't all the time, because there was cars I would have liked to have shot that were in something else, but most notably was Pinky's Roadster Loaded. I was like the last person on earth to shoot
Love
that car.
that car.
And
That was in Super Rod, right?
Street Rod Builder.
Street Rod Builder.
How did the stronghold in the South come on? Because there was definitely a Jesse and Alan, Paul, like there was just leggings like down in this. It was just, you knew that was going to be in Street Rod Builder or Stupid Rod.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that started with a relationship that maybe Scott and John had with Bobby.
Okay.
And it's pretty vague to me, but I know that they did a lot with him early on. But, Bobby also did a lot with Street Rodder.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of divided them at one point. I think in one of your podcasts, Bobby makes a joke about, he tells a story about,
Yep.
dancing with the one that brought you to the dance.
Yep.
And I know exactly what he's talking about.
And who said it?
Yeah, and all that. And I get it. I mean, that makes sense, because that was part of what I always felt was, I spent a lot of time visiting shops just to see what they were doing, because my idea was, if I've stopped there 2 or 3 times, when the car's done, there's a good chance I'm going to get to shoot it. And on the occasions when I didn't, I would always go, did he come and visit you 3 times over the last year? Not to be a dick, but it was kind of like, I just want you to think about that. Did he run a news item on it when you were building it?
Yep.
I was kind of expecting to get to do that.
Yeah.
But
Pumping you press beforehand. Yeah.
But I got it. It was like, I could see their point of view too. It was like, Street Rodder's got a lot of, I get it. But at that time, I'm like, ours is like really nice paper, and it's color from front to back.
Yeah.
They're just printed on newspaper basically at that point.
Yeah, but Hot Rod Builders enough then, and even especially now, to know that when you're trying, the ego's like, okay, great. It's got, it's got better paper that goes to less people. Well, put me on shittier paper that goes to more people.
And I get that. Yeah. I mean, it'd be like, for years, I think okay, so I'm not lumping everybody into the group. For a long time, I thought Hot Rod was just like a terrible magazine. Like nothing that was in it was worth looking at.
But it was Hot Rod.
But I knew that if I had the chance to have a car, I would want it in Hot Rod, because if you went to any small town in America and they had one car magazine, it would be Hot Rod. Mm-hmm. Hot Rod was more worldwide accepted than any other car magazine. It made sense. They had the exposure. And I think in our industry, that was, we looked good, but we didn't have the biggest presence.
Yeah.
We didn't have the biggest, we were tough to find, but I still thought we put out a good product, and we took pride in what we put out,
Hot Rod's finally off the newsstands, isn't it?
No, it's quarterly now.
Quarterly,
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it at like the airports and stuff.
Yeah, shout out to John McCann for turning that thing around. It's been looking good recently.
They've gone back to like the thick paper.
I mean,
it's
he's done a good job.
Hot Rod's always been a cool magazine in my
I mean, it's been the one.
Yeah.
It's been the one.
It's the gold standard. I mean, even when it was quote unquote not publishing the stuff we wanted to see, it was still hot rod.
Still
Yeah,
hot
there
rod.
was stuff that like wasn't the cool. It wasn't my style, but it was still it was a badass magazine.
Yeah, they went through all. I mean, good grief, they've been around for so long. There's so many different games that they had to play to do the thing,
And then whoever's the editor and what they thought was cool in their direction, and they steered it. And
or
then
what
came
paid the
back
bills.
and-
I mean, hell, there was time. I mean, I remember in this is probably late 2000s. I mean, out of 12 covers of Hot Rod, I mean, you'd have 6+ of them for OEs.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
And
You know, and the other problem is they went through so many. Well, I'd say they went through so many, but they went through some ownership changes that.
Yeah, like monthly, it seemed like at one point in time. It was,
Well, you know, you guys
Who
were
do we
talking.
send the check to today?
You guys were making the joke earlier about, you know, Ford Mustang magazine,
Yep.
Mustang Monthly. You know, when Peterson and
Source Interlink Primedia.
when they merged, it was like, what are you guys doing? You got like classic truck and custom classic truck. You got like competing titles.
super old custom truck,
Yeah,
Really, really old.
1950 to 50 and a half.
custom truck. Yeah,
With a K.
you're
And
killing
C.
you're killing you're killing
it's oversaturated.
watered down.
You know, so
the you're right though. McGann's done a really good. I love the where it all began kind of not rebranding, but
yeah,
like a nod of like, remember, like we have been around like longer than anybody.
I met him at Columbus last year, and he kind of was like, yeah, we're trying to get out and get back to our roots and get to know more of the hot rod shops and kind of get more that direction. And I was like, I'm all for that.
That's cool.
I introduced myself. I've never met him. I know of him and seen him come. I introduced myself at SEMA this last year. Wanted to get him on the podcast stuff. He completely blew me off.
He probably thought you were stupid.
Yeah, completely blew me off. Like, oh, okay, cool. Talk to you later. Tell me what?
Just slid that one in.
Thought I was who? Skeeter?
No.
What'd you
No,
say?
I didn't say that.
What did you say?
I just thought he probably thought you were stupid. It's not.
Okay.
No big deal.
Man, you fucking mean, dude.
That was pretty tame.
Yeah. All right.
So things are going good at Buckaroo.
Things are going good.
Then you're like, fuck it.
You know what I should do.
And well, things are going well there. And Jim, who was John's kind of business partner, he's like, I'm moving to Tennessee. John's like, well, then I got to move to Tennessee. And that was when they decided we're leaving Oxnard, California, and we're moving to Tennessee. Well, part of making that kind of a decision is you lose half your staff. Because there was a lot of people that were like, I'm not moving to Dayton, Tennessee, which was, for those who don't know, it's north of Chattanooga. Not as big as Chattanooga
So-
by any stretch.
Middle of nowhere, Tennessee.
Kind of, yeah. So I could see, like, you take your top ad sales guys and be like, hey, want to move to Dayton, Tennessee? How about no, John? Have fun. And
This is before remote jobs.
yeah,
too.
yeah. And I think that's kind of what ended up leading to kind of our downfall. Was
Just a bad fucking
was-
move, though.
it was a bad move because there was a lot of money spent wrong, I guess. Not necessarily spent wrong, but just the way it was spent.
Was wrong.
Well, it started out we were going to build a new building, and then we ended up deciding we're going to refurbish an existing historic building, which anybody should know that's going to be expensive. And that's what it turned into. And, you know, back up to that, you know, when things were going good there for a while in Tennessee, and I'm trying to watch expenses because I know things are kind of, and at that point, I was like, well, if it's 500 miles or less, I'll drive and shoot it and drive back same day, like a fool.
Wow.
That's some Iron Man shit.
Yeah, and I did that for a few months, and I went to shoot a car.
This is a pre-podcast too. So what are you going to listen to?
Oh, it was terrible, and I'm coming home one night, and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I just don't have it left in me. I've got to stop. So I stopped. And it was one of them deals, too, where you're like, you're kind of pissed at that point because you're like, God, I'm only like 2.5 hours from
Yeah,
home.
but I'm going to die
But
also.
I'm going to die if I don't stop right now.
That's when you get into the got any pits.
So
That's exactly what happened.
We'll touch on that next.
I stopped to stay at this Hampton Inn, and the gal goes and runs a Buckaroo card, and she's like, "It's declined." And I was like, "Run that again. It's not declined." She runs it again. She goes, "Yeah, it's saying it's declined."
Well, I'm awake now. I'll be home in a fucking minute.
So I'm like, okay. I'm like, here's my card if you need to run it, because I'm not gonna do it. So then the next morning I get up and she's like, "Hey, I ran it. It ran through." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe that was just like maybe it was a fluke, you know." So then I go take my rental car back, and she's like, "Yeah, this card's." Then I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" You know, and everybody's like, "Well, you know, we're kind of watching stuff and so on and so forth." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm trying to think, like, September of, that would have been like 08, I think. We got paid on the 1st and the 15th. The 1st comes and I don't get paid. 6th, 7th, 8th. I finally get paid like on the 9th or 10th. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, yeah, I'll be amazed if I get paid on the 15th. But sure enough, they paid me on the 15th too. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we just had a little bit of a
Little bump in the road.
little bump in the road. Well, then trying to think later that month, they're like, hey, we're going to start working 4 days a week. I'm like, okay. So you're going to get a 20% pay cut and work 4 days a week. I'm like, okay. And I mean, I was like, really like, are you kidding me? But at the same time, should have been grateful. I was still going to get something. So, you know, if you were going to do a show Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that meant you didn't work Monday, Tuesday, and whatever. But so then we get to Thanksgiving. That was the big deal. If we can make it to SEMA and we have a good SEMA, we're going to be fine. Okay, so we make it to SEMA. I think everything's going to be fine. And then I think it's right around Thanksgiving. They're like, hey, after Thanksgiving, nobody's coming back to work. What do you mean nobody's coming back to work? Well, you can collect unemployment from now until January 1st. Then everybody's going to come back January 1st. We're going to take a month off and see if that helps. Okay. So we come back. Everybody's back on January 1st. And I drive to an event in Little Rock first week of January. And then I get back. And then Monday, Jerry, who was one of the editors, calls and is like, you don't have a job anymore, just so you know. And I was looking like, oh. I kind of knew this was coming.
That was it, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I could sense it. I knew that things weren't great. You know, if cutting me was going to help save, then okay. But at the same time, I was shooting a lot of the stuff you guys were needing to print. So, but anyway, so my first thought was like, man, Street Riders always talked like they wanted to hire me. I'll call them. Because Brian had always said, you know, call me. So I called Brian, and at that time he's like, well, we're kind of like on a hiring freeze right now, but I can throw you as much freelance work as you want. I was like, cool. So during my unemployed phase, Brian did a great job of making sure that I had plenty to do and helped keep me afloat, because at that point I liquidated a lot of stuff I had at that time just to make sure that everything was good. During that period, I used to talk to Steve Tracy frequently because I had shot his Roadster when Greening debuted at Detroit.
Chromezilla.
That's right. And we used to talk frequently. And one time I was on the phone with him, and he's like, you found a job yet? And I'm like, no, still freelancing. And he's like, you should come work for me. And I kind of chuckled, and he was like, no, I'm serious. Like, somebody needs to oversee the automotive side of this, because the music guitar component side's like a two-headed monster, and I don't have enough time for it, for both. And he goes, let's talk. I was like, okay. So he flew me to Detroit for the Autorama that year, and he and I talked, and we agreed. And so I went back home and my wife was pregnant at the time, and I was like,
Guess what?
guess what, we're moving. And which nobody in my family knew anything about it. Like, I wasn't telling anybody. I was like, I'm going to make up my mind first and then tell everybody. And it felt terrible because, you know, all the grandparents were going to get their first grandchild.
And it was just going to be different.
And I'm
It's
like,
a different place.
I'm like, we're moving. And I felt so strapped that it was like, I've got to do this, you know. And sorry, you know, apologies to my wife, because, you know, it was kind of like, you don't have a choice. We're moving.
Yeah.
And you know, it was a tough decision to make, but I knew it was one that I had to make, because at that point in time, I didn't know what else I was going to do, because freelance was so sporadic. It was like, yeah, it was consistent. I was consistently doing work, but the pay wasn't always coming in consistently.
Yeah.
And now that I had a child on the way, I was going to need benefits and all sorts of other stuff.
Changes your perspective a little bit.
Definitely. So make the decision. She gets on board. She's always been overly supportive, you know, even when it was probably not what she wanted to do, but she's always been right there behind me. And so we decide we're going to move to Tennessee. I tell my family, not easy. Tell my grandparents, not easy. Tell her family, not easy. And the goal is we're going to move after my son's born. Well, I won't get into the whole story, but my son had some problems when he was born, heart issues, and we ended up having some open heart surgeries, a few things like that, and kind of put me on, like, I'm not moving right now. It's got to wait, you know. And then once he gets through his first 2 surgeries, it's like, okay, we can think about moving. And then we try to move, and it's like, I just cannot sell the house for anything, you know. And I think all my family's thinking, maybe this is a sign that you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But at the same point, because I'm stubborn and hard-headed, I'm like, no, I'm going to sell this house and we're going to move. I'm going to show you that we're going to go down there and I'm going to have a good living and a good career, and it's going to be great, you know. And so finally, you know, get the house sold. And again, supportive parents, even though it's not what they want to see, they get me moved to Tennessee. And it was a big change because we moved somewhere we didn't know anybody other than Steve and Sherry. And at that time, Jesse lived down there, so I knew Jesse. And but that was kind of it. And she had my wife had a cousin that lived there, amazingly enough. So that was kind of like, okay, well, there's somebody. But, you know, it got to a point where you kind of get to where you got your own routine, your own rhythm, and we just didn't really get outside of it at all, you know. And unfortunately for my wife and my son, they ended up spending most of their time right there at the house or close to the house, and it was tough because we were, you know, if we had vacation time, we were using it to go see family, and we're never taking vacations as a family. And but, you know, not being Debbie Downer on it, but the opportunity to advance plating was great. They gave me the opportunity to come in there and build a customer base, and was basically special projects manager. So what that basically entailed was
dealing with assholes like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you all chrome this?
I still have no fucking idea how you kept your level of composure with the amount of, because there's never, correct me if I'm wrong, I would have to imagine there's never been a time in the history of ever that someone's like, hey, to let you know, sending you some chrome, take your time, whenever, you know, whatever you've got to do, charge me whatever you need to charge me.
3 years before we need to get this thing done.
I've got everything cataloged. I've taken pictures of everything. I've individually wrapped everything. I've taken everything apart. Hey, those vent windows, I've already went ahead and disassembled them, right? And taken them, and everything's good to go. Just call me when it's done. You won't hear from me until you call me. There's never been that.
Yeah, never. Ever. And that was a new experience because
I sent you one left vent window. Can you find a right one? Chrome it when you find one.
And put it back together.
those all sound really familiar. There was I learned a lot about customer relationships. I felt like I'd already built relationships by going to all these shops and shooting these cars. So that was a good transition. It's like, hey, I'm here now.
Yeah.
If you need something, reach out to me.
That's a quick transaction, though. You're taking a picture. You're going to make them a hero.
Yeah.
Y'all are friends.
Everything's good. Now I need to make this show.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be really upset if I don't. Yeah. And it needs to be perfect when I get it.
It'd be your fault if we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I know there's no time. Not my problem. Your problem.
I got through it with a lot of anti-anxiety medication, to say the least. But
Which one works the best?
I'm a big fan of citalopram. So. but
You cannonball that with some mushrooms.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of what my specialty was, is, you know, critical timelines, critical, what am I trying to say?
Everything's on the line.
Perfection.
Everything's on the line. I mean, we've been really good friends for quite some time, but on a business side of things, I've thought about it so many times, how many times I've been so impressed, because there has never been no matter how bad the situation was, there was never any, like, panic. But there was also, like, there was never any, I don't know of a time that you've ever said, I don't know what to tell you. I've never heard, I don't know what to tell you. It's always like I've always strived in life, in this business life, and finding problems and stuff. I think about it all the time. I'm like, well, fucking Josh would figure it out. Like, if Josh could figure it out, I've got to be able to figure it out.
Third
Like,
person stuff? Or?
yeah. If Josh Mishler can figure it out, then
It makes more sense that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like pushing you of like, well, fuck it. You are a magician because we've all seen you do you. Like, there's fucking.
He'll walk into burning buildings to save bumpers.
Smoldering.
I'm
Smoldering.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll get to that.
He might have embellished that one a little bit. But no, it's literally like, because everybody that's listening now that's ever had any plating done, regardless of where they've had it done, the plater and the interior shop, right, is getting the short end of the stick, right? They're getting screwed.
Sure.
The plater is on a deadline, and there's so many different variables, and there's so many things that sometimes a car builder just get all the parts off of the car that need to be plated, throw in a big box, and get the plater to handle all the things. There's a lot of shit that goes.
I think it's important to mention that no matter how talented the fabricator is, they can't build a box for shit to save their life.
Dude, we can build some fucking boxes.
You guys can, yeah. I got some nice crates for you guys, but I'm just saying.
We build crates.
Fucking crate builders.
There's just a lot of other
The
ones
parts
out
might
there.
have been shit inside the crate.
You get the package and you open it up and you're like, how did this ever make it here?
Yeah.
Well, half of it did.
That has got to be a tough business with the egos too, because you're taking your metal finishing parts essentially. I mean, you've got some thin coatings. You're putting copper on top of that, but that's
Sometimes thick.
Sometimes you have to.
Right.
Sometimes thick.
But you're taking a guy's metal work that he's proud of, and when you tell it, you're like, dude, this thing's it's fucked. Like
The fabricator doesn't want to be told you got to put body work on it. They think it's ready to spray.
Exactly. He de-ate it.
Yeah, so spray
and
it.
scuffed it. Sprayed a little Gibbs oil on it. The pictures looked metal finished.
Prime it.
And now
paint
it's
it.
like, let's just plate it. They're going to plate it. They probably, a thin little coat of copper on it. And this
Yeah, if it
going to
was
be like
if it was just ever that easy.
You just say it was a couple mils because no fabricator knows
Yeah.
like what a mill actually
Yeah,
is.
it's a few
30,000.
minutes. It'll be all right.
30,000.
Yeah.
That's the universal
It'll only add about
tolerance.
30,000.
You know, it was a lot to juggle because, I mean, especially the thing that you would get into that made it really tough was, say you got 4 customers competing for Riddler that year, where you got 5 customers trying to make it to SEMA.
Dude.
It was like a balancing act.
How much money does it take to get your parts quicker so you win?
Well,
if only there was a price for that.
I understand that process. I've been in that situation to understand how that works. Advance is a bigger company, but in some smaller companies like certain upholstery shops, when that arises of like, we have this car that's going to the Riddler, this car that's going to the Riddler, this car that's going to the Riddler. Well, guess what? We can't get them all done. So you get to decide who is going to get to the Riddler. We were in a situation like that with an upholstery shop who decided we weren't the guys that were going to be winning that award. We prevailed, right? But I understand how that goes. That's a horrible position to be in, but I think Advanced is a large enough company to get the jobs done.
Yeah, and
right?
also, the reason I looked like a magician was because of the crew we had.
Right. But
I mean,
it's the same. Yeah, go ahead. Because you did have a good crew. You also had to constantly convince and manage that good crew.
Also true.
To juggle.
Yeah,
it's not like you can just be like, oh, we got 100 guys just sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting for the next thing to plating.
Right.
And I just got to go find them.
Dude, all they're doing is just dipping it.
Yeah.
That's like that's like the worst thing to ever hear.
Steve can't stand the word dip.
Dip,
He
just
can't
dip it?
stand it. Don't say dip it.
It's like a molten chrome.
I mean, he's going to walk through that door right now.
He'll be in here any second. I just know it. Right now, he's
Get him
somewhere
and Glenn
going.
together.
Yeah, he can't stand the
Y'all can dip a couple of 21-inch wheels for us.
Just give him a dip.
But I tried really hard to make sure that every day I went around and talked to everybody that worked there, because I knew that
You're going to have to call a favor.
one day it's going to be like, look, I need you to come through on this huge. And the other thing too was like, it was always important to have like plan A, B, and C. So, like if you told the first step for me was always, I put a hot date on it that was what I thought was ahead of when you would need it. Was it realistic? Maybe not, but it gave them something to shoot for, and they could shoot for it. If they didn't make it, then that's when we start, okay, now we know that they've got till, it's when it'd be like, hey, what's your like absolutely drop dead, got to have it day? And
If I can just get the bumpers and the taillight bezels.
On this time.
Yeah, on
I'll
this
be fine.
time. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like a negotiation.
which
exactly
it was
what
a
it
lot of
was.
negotiating. And but the crew was incredibly talented there. I mean, lots of great polishers, metal finishers, and Steve is very involved. I mean, from sun up to sundown at that place. He's the floor general, or he was when I was there. I know he's a little. Things are a little bit different there now than they were when I was there, but definitely. He had a hot list. We worked on the hot list. Everybody managed the hot list, and he's one of them people that photographic memory.
Yeah.
He could be like, "What's the deal with this one?" Well, it's ran 6 times in the copper. It's been in there X amount of time, and so and so ran it. It had this blemish in it. It's like, okay, all right, I got it, and maybe we had these conversations before, but sometimes it would be like, look, I've plated this 7 times. This is the best it's looked. It's got one flaw here. I think at this point, we need to send it out. If you can't absolutely live with it after the show, send it back. But right now, you're either going to get it or you're not.
Yeah.
And just try to always take care of the customer and remain calm, like you said, because I also wanted to know, like, hey, this is a huge pain in the ass, just so you know. You're disrupting every flow within this shop.
The entire company.
Yeah. Like, other people are not getting their stuff because you're disrupting it, just so you know.
But this car's going to be awesome.
This car's gonna,
$100,000.
this car's going to be everything.
Going to put you on the map.
Nobody will have ever heard of you until this car is built.
Absolutely. It's going to be in a magazine.
I mean, I found you, but be thankful that I found you, because everybody else is going to know about you.
It's going to win SEMA after this.
Well, I know. And the funny thing about that is, if you've ever been to advanced plating, They're not hurting for work.
No.
So it's not like you're going to come in there and be like,
You're not putting them on the map.
no, there's none of that.
They're on the map.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, Steve could very easily be like, I don't need any of that. I don't need that headache, and that place would be just fine, and everybody else would be just fine.
No, he does
but
that
he
shit
still
because he loves it.
Loves it, you know, and that
was such an important thing that, you know, we talk about. I guess we sound old, but we talk about the heyday, right? Back in the day, back in the downtown location, back when Nashville Good Guys was at the stadium, right? In the heyday, right? You had the kickoff party. There was such a brand around advanced plating. The kickoff party, the thing, like
It was more important to get your car at advanced plating for
Fuck
the day
yeah, it was.
there than it was at the
I tried
show.
very hard for that to be like
It was
like you wanted to be.
It was a
featured
thing.
Thursday night.
It was a thing, and it was like oh fuck, you got an invite to be because it was like a pre-show, right? Because you were picking the cars that were about to be debuted. You'd have some other stuff, but the debut cars got in a certain spot, and you're like, before, you know, Thursday night before the show's open, you get to see the cool shit. And just to be associated, that's the secret sauce. A lot of stuff. That's that thing of like, man, the brand and the relationships and all that stuff. It just works, and it makes it where like there's not a question. Like, it's got a Roadster Shop chassis, it's got so and so wheels, it's got advanced plating. Like, you run to the thing, and like that's what makes the pedigree of the car, right?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I always was really proud of, was the fact that, you know, I had cars that were featured in there that didn't even go to the show. People that brought cars to be in the open house that didn't even go to the show, which was like,
that's cool.
You know, and to me, the best one still is, you know, may he rest in peace, Gil Losi had the Plymouth convertible that Steve Cook did.
Yeah.
And I had asked him, I said, man, I would love to have that at the open house, but I know you're in California. He goes, I'll bring it out there for you. And he did. He brought that car to the show and put it inside. And it was,
wow.
It was like explaining, you know, that's what customer relationships are.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get to where you've got that kind of trust with somebody, you know, I mean, that's, you just, I mean, you know, you go to the old cliche that you always try and take care of the customer, which was always my goal. Take care of the customer. The customer's happy. They're going to say great things about us.
Yep.
Which was what, you know, that's the best advertising you can get. Because if you screw up, that's the worst advertising you can get. And that guy's going to tell 5 times the amount of people that the guy that had the good experience did.
But at the same time, it's a give and take. For it to be the best relationship, it's a give and take. You're going to do whatever you possibly can do always for the customer. And you're hoping it gets to that point where the customer's like, hey, guess what? Like, this one really isn't. I've got some time, right? We've gotten smarter. We got a little bit of time on this. You've killed yourself for the last 72 jobs, right? So how about this one? Like, hey, weren't through, not a big deal. And that's when the customers don't beat you up on price. They don't do this. I mean, we deal with it on a similar but different, you know, level here on chassis stuff, where it's, you know, you get some great customers you've done a lot of stuff for, you know, and then we'd laugh about it. And, you know, with a couple of my really, really good customers, I've always talked about it, like, get out of jail free card, right? It's like, dude, you get a couple get out of jail free cards. There's gonna be times where you're gonna be like, oh, guess what? I fucked this up royally. I need help. I need this one fast. I need this fixed, blah, blah, blah. No problem. And there's gonna be other times like, dude, I can't start on this project for another 10 months. Not a big deal. I want to get this order in, put it in the thing. Okay, no problem. Let's just completely cut the bullshit, be 100% honest, and do whatever it takes to help each other out. But it's a two-way street. Like, just be like.
And like when you were talking about 5 cars going for something, I made it a point to try and put the same amount of effort into everybody's job.
You didn't pick the winner?
No. I wasn't picking no favorites. It was...
What if there was like a 57 Chrysler?
Ooh, that would have been tough. Now, I will tell you...
Not a chrome. He'd have been like, no, fuck this one.
I will tell you,
Big Bill.
I probably did spend a little bit of extra attention to Gil's Plymouth Chrome than I did any other car.
I bet you did.
Because he even made that comment. He goes, I know you paid good attention to this stuff when it was going through. I was like, oh, yeah, I was excited about this one. But... which is tough because you're trying to give everybody It's really tough when you get to the show and you got like 5 customers competing. But at the same time, if you've ever been to Detroit and been to the advanced plating booth, you would find out that all those customers end up being friends before the weekend's
Yeah.
over.
Yep.
They all hang out at the booth.
Well, I know maybe it's just being reminiscent, but I think back and some of the memories are coming as we're talking. That was such a great time, and I know Advance is kicking ass. They're rocking and rolling, but there was that magical time there with you and Steve and the involvement that you had in the shows and in cars and debuting and stuff. And there was from even a car that like maybe didn't have any or very little plating on, right? And it would be like, hey, this and this, or I know you're talking about the next one. We're working on this prototype finish here. I got some ideas. It wasn't just just tell me what you want and we'll do it. It was, I want to be a part of you guys wanted to be a part of the process. You want to be like, hey, I know you said you want to do brush and bright, but I kind of got this idea about doing this. And you're like, oh, that's fucking awesome. Can you do that? And you're like, we never done it before, but we're going to try to do it. I think we can do it. It was a really, really amazing time to push the envelope on everything.
Yeah. And Steve was really good about letting me, like, if you want to do it, that's your baby.
Yeah.
But that's your baby. And I did a lot of split finishes and, because before that it was kind of like we're either brushing the part or it's bright. And it was like, well, what if we just did like this edge brushed?
Yeah.
And honestly, the first person who let me do that was Troy Heavy up there in Mantino.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was doing the 56 Buick for Mark Willman. And, I call him.
It was a Detroit debut, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I call him and I'm like, hey, what if we did this? He's like, love it, do it. Because he was like, if it's different, it's going to add detail, do it. And so we did it. And then it was kind of like, okay, now we've got the 2-headed monster. And the problem with that is if you're, a bit of a control freak, you really don't want anybody else doing it because
that's a lot of manual labor.
You have in your head what it should look like.
Yeah.
And so there were some people that I trusted to do it that worked there. Well, then, maybe they moved on. Well, that's like, well, I'm going to have to learn to do this myself. And I watched a lot of people do it, and I ended up doing a lot of the satin finishes and some of the brush finishes if I needed to. More so on stuff that was a dual finish.
Yeah.
If it was just brushed, somebody could do that, no problem. But the dual finish stuff, I was very particular on how the lines had to be, how it had to stop, and, just really nitpicky crap.
Yeah, because brush strokes matter, like
That's
direction
exactly
and where
right.
that part's going to go and landing. And
Yeah, that's the terrible thing is like you'd be doing something and then like if you stopped or something happened and you kind of slipped, it felt like it took forever to correct that and straighten it out.
because you're always see underneath all those, you'll see that.
Oh yeah, and the satin finishes were the worst because you're taking a deep breath and using a media finish on it, trying to satin it, hoping that the plating doesn't flake, and it was a lot of.
How many times are you kind of working with builders to figure out like how 2 pieces of trim line up to see which way the brushing should intersect?
A lot of that, and that was the thing is it's funny because as it progressed, it was like, we need more pictures with everything. We need more notes with everything because it was important for the guy working on it to understand, look, this fits to this and this line has to carry on. So,
You just created a monster basically.
yeah, I made it worse is what I did,
But it was
but Steve supported it and he was always,
Pushing the envelope.
yeah, he's like, go for it, and
it was a
I'm
huge
sure
part of how far the industry got driven through those years on the high end like show car when it was just cranking, when that, especially when that was what the customers wanted to. Customers were really wanting to push the envelope there on the looks, the design, because you had everything. You had the awards hitting on all cylinders. You had the customers wanting that look and that level of build, willing to spend the money on that level of build, and then you had the print media that was still feeding it as well of like the baddest of the bad. It was a crazy time.
Yeah, I remember walking, feeling like we were doing so, like we'd done something. Was, one night we were walking through the Vault in Detroit, and I overheard somebody say, "Hey, there's the guys from Advanced Plating. We had to talk to them." I was like, "Have we done something?"
I remember it, well, at Goolsby of people, shops calling and be like, "Hey, I know you do a lot with, Steve and Josh." It's like, who can I talk to Josh? Can you like give me a contact? Or like, I'd really love to advance. What do I got to do to get Advanced to do my plating? I'm like, well, they're a company that does plating. Like you could call them and be like, "Hey, I want to do it." Like, but that's like that would add, spoke to your prominence in the industry of people wanted to hook up. Like, who do I talk to there?
You wanted the guy. So
I wanted the guy
done right.
Yeah.
Had a little personal connection.
Yeah.
So that grows into a massive clientele list that you're trying to take care of. It's really tough. It doesn't get any easier. Let's put it that way.
And it's one of the very few industries that you are in the business of perfection. Even paint, you can get away with a lot in paint. It's never truly perfect. Chrome is probably the one thing that literally has to be perfect. Shows every flaw.
Yeah, and
you can't go back and spot it in.
No. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't. That's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is like, every time it comes through when you played it, like there's your opportunity. Right now, it's either the best it could be or it can get better. But the odds are you might be at your best right now.
At the best.
And Steve would all the time say, I think we're at the point of diminishing return on this. We've ran it so much, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I remember him being like, I'm sure we've lost our ass on that. It's like, yeah, we probably have, and I'm sorry it's went that way. But at the same time, it's like, it's what we agreed to do. That was the thing that Steve always did was at Advanced, everything was quoted up front, and that's what it was.
Yep.
I wasn't going to come back and go. Now, that did happen, but it would be like, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but this weld broke or this is not this way, so there's going to be a small charge for repairing that. That's beside the point. But it was never like, yeah, this took us like 15 hours, so now it's this much money. We didn't do that. But yeah, it was a two-headed monster, to say the least. And then, so right before I went to work there was when they had the flood, which, that could have easily put them out of business.
Yep.
And going back to supportive parents, my dad, who has always worked in maintenance his whole life, I hadn't even moved to Tennessee yet. And he was like, I could probably help him. And he jumped in his truck and he drove to Tennessee and helped Steve for 3 or 4 days.
Really?
Tearing motors apart, going through them. Yeah, working on the buffing line.
Damn.
And, and that just,
Wow.
Talking about somebody who knew that they didn't want me to move, but he also knew that my dad was also
he
like,
wanted you to succeed.
Yeah, he wanted me to succeed, and he knew, hey, that place needs to get back up and running. So,
that's crazy.
I'll take a few days and go down there and help him out. And he called Steve and told him, and Steve's like, I'm not turning away any help. It's kind of funny because I like to think of it more like my dad was like Liam Neeson, like, I've got a particular set of skills that might be helpful to a man like you in a time of need. So, but
That's pretty good.
So they get through the flood. That would have been 2010. I finally get moved in fall of 2012. So I'm there. And then in 2018, the fire happens. And I was on the alarm notifications there. So, like, I'd get a phone call if the alarm went off. And usually it was something weird, but that particular Saturday, I was on my way to shoot a car over near Memphis, and my phone goes off, and they're like, smoke detector, alarm, whatever. I'm like, what? So I try calling and nobody answers. And I try calling somebody else because we would run till noon on Saturday. And this was well before, I think this was right before noon when I got the first notification. So then I call Sherry, and Sherry answers, and she's like, yeah, the place is on fire. I'm like, what do you mean the place? She's like, the place is on fire. I'm like, oh my God. She's like, yeah, Terry's there. He's on the phone, you know. I'm like, okay. So then the whole time I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? And I think about turning around, but at the same time, I like, if I turn around, all I'm going to do is go watch the place burn to the ground because I'm trying to remember who else I called. I called somebody else, and they were like, yeah, Steve. Steve at that time had went to some sort of conference in Atlanta to look at equipment, and he was coming back. And I know he told the guy that was with him, he goes, if it's on fire, it's burning to the ground. That's all there is to it. They're not stopping it. And so, sidebar, I had a car that I had recently purchased that was parked right next to the building that was on fire. So I call, I'm also having a double freak out about that because I'm like, I ain't got no insurance on that. And so I call Gil, who I worked with there that was now an upholsterer, and I was like, is there any way you can go down there and see if, you know, which reflecting now, I'm like, that was a dumb idea. They're not going to let him get close enough to move the car. He's like, and he calls me and he's like, yeah, you can't even get near there. He's like, they're shutting the interstate down because the smoke's so bad.
Oh, shit.
I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, like Top Golf, you can't even see it Top Golf. He says, it's on the news. So everybody's calling me and giving me like play-by-plays of like this, you know, like it's on the news.
Your business is burning down.
It's burning to the ground.
Damn.
And I'm like, just a mixed bag of emotions about what's going on. What am I supposed to do? You know, but I'm like, I still got to find a place to shoot this car. I still got to shoot this car. So, but at the same time, as you can imagine, my phone is blowing up.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's tech
What's
messages.
up with my parts?
Yeah, everybody's concerned about what they got in there, which I understand. And it's just constant, just one after the other. And, you know, Sherry's like, you're going to have to post something on the internet. So I took my son with me to shoot the car, and he would have been 8 at the time. And so we pulled into a McDonald's or something. I said, I need you to just sit there for a few minutes while I type this. So I typed out, you know, about what was going on and posted it, and then we went and did the shoot. Everything went great. And then I drove back, and I was like, I'm going to drive down by there. Because by this time, when I'm getting home, it's like 11 o'clock. Sure enough, Steve's still standing down there. You know, and the first thing I did was just walked up and hug him because I was like, I don't know what else to say. You know, you just watched your life's work burn to the ground. Now, because it was 2 buildings separated by a dock and a breezeway, the warehouse was fine and the showroom was fine. But the offices and all that was just destroyed. And it was terrible because, like, the end that the offices were on, there was no reason they couldn't have put that out. There are no chemicals down there, but they were very scared of chemical spillage and, you know, all sorts of environmental things. Damn. And so that was kind of like, we'll just stand back and watch this and let a controlled burn happen. So, you know, him and Sherry basically just had to watch the place. And I can only imagine how tough that was because just being somebody who was emotionally invested in the place, it was tough to watch. But Steve has made the comment before that he is, what is it he says? He's disaster proof or, you know, crisis.
Yeah.
You know, and he's right because the very next day it was like, okay, everybody, we're having a meeting down here. We're going to figure this out. And the first day it was, let's get all the cars out of the warehouse because he had a bunch of cars stored in there and figure out what we're going to do. So then on Monday we had a meeting with everybody in the place. He basically said, I know this is a lot, So if anybody wants to leave right now, here's your chance to leave. But if you want to stay, I'll do everything I can to make sure that you have work to do and stay busy. And one of the things he learned with the flood was you'll get all these companies that want to come in and clean it up. And it's like, I can pay you a ton of money, or I can pay my employees and keep them working.
Yeah.
Which is what they did. So they kept everybody working that they could. And the first thing they told us, the sales team, was basically, you know, start accounting for what was lost and figure out what was lost. And then start ordering it and replacing it. And it was like, well, do we need to do insurance? They're like, nope, we're going to pay for all that right now. And then we'll settle it later with insurance company. Well, the other bad thing about the fire was where it burned, it destroyed the mainframe computer. So we had nothing.
Shit.
Nothing in the computer system. Man. But what we did have was, on the showroom side, we had copies of everything that had been entered in the computer system.
Copies.
Yeah. So I should.
Hey,
Hey,
fucking printed
go.
out
You came
copies.
right through with printed out
coming
copies.
back fucking strong.
Save the day.
Yep.
So
right there, you
That's
read
a
it.
throwback.
Hey, I have got to split because it's my son's graduation. That's happening in 15 minutes.
Oh.
So you guys are going to have to proceed without me. I apologize, but
no worries.
I've missed every other milestone.
We'll enjoy it.
Family's life, but these are important. So thanks.
Have a good one.
Thanks, dude.
The first thing was go through all the books, pull all your customers out of them, and re-enter them in the computer system. And that was a long task. So once we did that, then it was, all right, now start figuring out what's destroyed. Well, it was also, we're going to dig through the rubble and find out what we can save, which was another part of it. So dig through the rubble, find out what we can save, so on and so forth. And, you know, of course, then I had a lot of customers that had stuff that was close to finished. I had some that had stuff that was finished on the shipping table that didn't get shipped, you know. And at that time, Brian at Tin Man's Garage was building a Willys pickup for Sloniker, and I had a whole table full of stuff that was polished and plated and ready for his car that was sitting on a shipping table. So I had to redo, you know, all that. And luckily, 99% of everybody was very understanding. And the option was, I can refund you your money, send you new parts, or I'm going to replace the parts and you can wait. And when we're up and running again, we'll plate them. And I would say it was kind of half. Half was like, yeah, I'm in no hurry, just keep it. And then, or, you know, they're like, well, I don't know who else I'm going to go to, so just keep it. And so that was a long couple of months there, to say the least. But
He said 99%. That would mean there was somebody that was, regardless of a disaster, was a fucking asshole. You don't have to talk, but that's, of course.
You've matured. Normally, you'd be like, "Who was that one?"
There's no sense in going there.
yeah.
Wow. But that, I mean, it speaks to them. It speaks to you guys. It speaks to advanced plating. Like, we gotta make them whole. Do whatever we gotta do. Let's. But you did see like the ripple effect in the industry of like that next 10 months of like. Well,
everyone started painting bumpers.
Well, there was
trims.
just like so and so was supposed to show up, but advance, and it's like, oh fuck, and then like it prolonged a lot of cars.
Yeah, I mean, there was, it's funny is everybody's always like, well, what was the toughest thing to replace? And it was that Edelbrock intake manifold of all things.
Really?
Yeah, there was one that Chop It Customs had, and I don't remember all the specifics on it, which it should be burned in my brain, but I think I tried to block it out. But I could not find one of those to save my life. I mean, I turned over every rock I knew, talked to everybody. I even got to where I was talking to somebody at Edelbrock about, do you have a showroom display or anything? I'll buy it. And one of the guys that I finally got a hold of was like, yeah, I estimate that we only made like 300 of those, and that was it.
Oh, wow.
For some like Y block or weird motor. Or
It
something.
was 3 deuces for Vortec heads, and it had an oil fill at the front, if I remember correctly.
God.
It was something.
Not even something cool, something stupid.
It was a weird combination, but they made another intake that was almost identical except for oil fill location. So luckily, Craig Naff was able to modify that intake and make it look like the other one.
Good old Craig Naff. That's a master.
He is a master craftsman, amazing skill set, somebody who probably doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah. That's somebody we should have on the podcast.
He is one of the most talented people. I mean, that's the cool thing is I got to meet a lot of talented people over the years, and he is so down to earth and like just as normal as can be. And you're like, you worked at Boyd's. You worked at Boyd's in the heyday.
Yeah. But he's the opposite of so many other people that are in very similar skill sets in his
Very much so.
space.
Yeah.
The exact opposite.
Yeah. Because it would be very easy to be like, you know who I am?
Yeah.
I did Cadzilla. Remember the Smoothster? That was
me.
You know? But totally just down to earth. So, but yeah, he helped out. And, you know, everybody helped out. I mean, that was the thing. It was like outpouring of support. Everybody wants to help. And we want to, you know, everybody was patient with us. And I'm trying to think that would have been... I want to say it was a year and a half later, and we were back up and running in Portland, Tennessee. Bigger, better facility.
Was it a year and a half?
I feel like it was a year and a half, but I could be wrong. I'm trying to think.
Did you skip because you skipped one good guys in between.
Yes.
And then it was the second after that was the open house. Because I was there at that open house.
Yeah,
the very
we
first.
did that, and we were getting really close to firing up the plating lines at that point.
Exactly.
One of the first things that was plated, well, no, that's not true, now that I say that. I started to say it was Barry's wheels, but it was close to that time.
No, the Catalina wheels would have been done at old facility.
No, that was right in the middle of the fire when we were in the rebuild.
I thought we had to have the bumpers back because we were trying to get the car done for SEMA that year. So it wouldn't have been a year and a half later.
Yeah.
The wheels.
No, yeah.
You got pushed that much.
Did
it? Because the bumpers were gone.
No,
I saved them.
You saved the bumpers.
Shout out to Advanced Plating because nobody could come through and do the work that you need. Which is why it took longer.
It's 100. Yes.
It was tough to get that quality replicated somewhere else, I'd like to add.
that personal attention to detail just took
I know it's the love that I put into every order. But yeah, the wheels. That was the thing, was a lot of people in the plating industry supported us big time. Dan's Plating helped out, John Wright, and Leonard's Plating, who was local there in Tennessee, in Nashville. And
of course, John Wright did. John's a great dude. I've probably only hung out with him or talked to him maybe 4 or 5 times ever.
Great guy.
But talking about the rivalry stuff and like why do you have to be that way? Like Steve's never said a bad thing about John, and John's never said a bad thing about Steve, and they're the two that are at the fucking pinnacle of the industry, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Of like, there's enough. I do my thing, you do your thing. You know,
both of them had massive waiting lists.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the thing, is the waiting list on Chrome never gets any shorter. You know, I think when I left, it was 16 weeks, and I think one of the last things I had sent in from the hot rod shop when I was working at Vintage Fabrication, I want to say they were telling me like 22 weeks at that time. You know,
That's because it was you, though.
Oh, well, you know, I'm sure it was. It's him?
Yeah, tell him to fucking wait.
Tell him 45 weeks.
So that brings us to like, you know, you made mention earlier about, you know, wife and kids and stuff and family and vacation. Then you go through a fire, right? And you get everything, you know, back on up and running. When does it start like becoming a time for the family, or like, I got to do something?
I had those thoughts right before the fire. And
the fire probably puts those thoughts at bay.
Yeah. So right before, honestly, right before the fire, I had interviewed with a car museum in Kansas 2 or 3 times, and I felt really good, like I was going to get the job, and then I didn't get it, and then the fire happened, and I was like, well, that's going to have to wait, because
yeah.
And I'm not saying this is the only reason I did it, but, you know, this is a small industry. If you go splitting when things get tough,
yeah,
you know, the word gets around. It's going to look, it just doesn't, it's not a good image for somebody who's wants to spend their life in this industry.
Yeah.
And again, that's not the only reason. I wanted to help and get the thing back to where it should be. Because, you know, even though that was Steve's baby and Sherry's baby, I felt a lot of connection to it.
You're like an uncle.
Yeah. I had poured a lot of myself into there.
You did.
I loved that place. I loved my customers and the people that worked there. And so we get back up and running, and I'm trying to think. It's been a year or two, and I'm like, okay, it's time to start. I want to get back home. I knew I wanted to get back home. Wife wanted to get back home. Kids wanted to get back home. Wanted to be around a family more.
And you can't get back to Nebraska, so Kansas is the best place.
Kansas is a good fill-in. You know, like I told people, I got to spend a lot of time with my grandparents when I was growing up. And I felt awful that I was depriving my kids of that because we were down there. So I start putting feelers out, and I had another opportunity at another car museum, because that was kind of in my head what a dream job was to be curator at a car museum. And I didn't even get an interview. And that was like, the world was over, in my opinion. I think my wife was like, you got to get over it. You are,
shut the fuck up. Nobody cares.
You have got to quit moping and acting. So,
do you know who I am?
Yeah. She's like,
I don't know if you're old enough to work at a museum.
Probably not. And it was like,
ask him a question.
I don't doubt the knowledge. He's definitely an old soul, but just physical appearance wise, I don't know if you're old enough to
that's
be a
true.
museum curator.
So then one day I'm talking to Bobby Schumacher, who was a friend of mine that had Vintage Fabrication. And he was kind of like, I don't know if I can afford you, but maybe I could be a way for you to get back here. And so I was kind of like, okay. And I was kind of hesitant, only because when you're friends with somebody and you're going to go to work for them, there's always that, like, I don't want it to ruin anything.
Yeah.
And Maya, my wife, was kind of like, what are you waiting for? Obviously, this would be a good fit for you, and it's a good way to get back there. So what do you say? So I called him, and he was like, we going to do this? I'm like, we're going to do it. And he agreed to bring me on as shop manager. So that was our way to move back. And, you know, circling back to something we talked about earlier, there was a lot of magazines and books to move.
Tractor trailer?
Oh, it was awful. That was like moving to Tennessee. I thought that was miserable. Moving from Tennessee back, that was terrible. That was terrible. I thought we had enough space. You know, like rent the biggest truck.
Yeah.
And then halfway through, my parents, that was one of the things my dad was always like, anytime you want to move back, I'll be down there tomorrow. You know, so ready to move back. They come down. We're halfway through packing this big truck, and my dad's like, you're going to have to get a trailer. So I call the guy at U-Haul, and I'm like, I need one of your trailers too. He's like, okay. go pick up the trailer. And then like we're getting to the end of it, and my dad's like, "There's no more room.
Something's got to stay.
Something's got to give." So I left the garage half full of stuff that I was like, "You're either gonna." I told the people like, "You can either throw it away, give it to charity, or keep it. It's up to you." And we got to a bunch of magazines, and I was like,
One of you kids is going to have to stay because the magazines are going.
so I'm reminded of.
We'll buy new beds.
So I'm just trying to get everything loaded up and get out of town. And
How many Beanie Babies did you leave behind?
oh, it was a lot. It was a ton.
Those are worth a lot of money now.
Did they come back?
I think so.
So, in A Christmas Story, when the old man buries the leg lamp, he plays taps in the backyard.
Yes.
I kind of felt that way as I went to a recycling bin and dumped magazines in it.
No way. Tim Strange is listening to this right now.
I'm sure.
And is rolling over in his Crocs.
Tim, I can. His Crocs.
He is dying right now.
Tim, I can promise you that they're all things that you already had copies of.
There's no way of knowing that.
Well,
There's no way of knowing that.
That was kind of how I did it. Was I kind of went like, these would be tough to replace. These are easy to replace. So these are gone. And, it was funny because, it was kind of like, it's fine. Like I just threw them all in the car and left everybody at the house and went to the store or went to the recycling.
Leave Dad alone. He's working through some stuff.
Had my moment.
Ben Affleck meme where he's outside smoking.
Exactly. It's like
early 50s hot rods.
no, I still had those. But yeah, and then when my grandfather passed away, I inherited all of his magazines.
Oh wow.
So I have a boatload of magazines.
They are the heaviest. I'd rather tote around like old engine blocks than totes of magazines. It's terrible.
So we finally get out of town, go to work there, and that's a lot of fun because I always enjoyed the hands-on part in the plating shop, whether it was tearing apart vent windows that people didn't tear apart, or figuring out
Unpacking boxes.
That's right. Or figuring out.
You should have quoted it higher. I'm not fucking with those vent windows, all right?
Some of the stuff I enjoyed as a challenge because, like, you would get guys that would send you. Like, I had a guy restoring a Cadillac, and all the convertible top bows were plated, but they were all riveted together. And it was like, how are you going to take this apart, put it back together, and it look right? Well, the cool thing was the guy that was doing our welding knew a guy that had a machine shop. And he's like, you should go talk to him. So I went over. I'm like, hey, this is what I have in mind. It's a button head, and it screws in from this side, and it's a button head on the other side.
Fucking Chicago screw, man. Fucking Chicago screw riveted.
Well, I know, but like,
yes,
you couldn't find the stuff I needed. And this guy'd look at it, he's like, yeah, I can do that. And then he'd turn them out. I'd plate them, and by God, this stuff would fit back together, and it'd look great.
That's awesome.
And that was the part of it that was like really rewarding. It was like that
problem
was awesome.
Solving. Yeah, problem solving.
I enjoyed that. So going over to the hot rod side, that was the fun part. It was like problem solving, and luckily he didn't set a lot of deadlines on the stuff we were building. But then again, it wasn't long, and it was like, okay, well, we're taking this car to SEMA, and then this car's going to Slonaker, and we got, and then we got another car going to SEMA, and it was the same vibe as the plating shop, which is, we got to get everybody inspired to make the deadline, even though they don't think it's going to happen, and then I'm going to problem solve things that not sure how they need to look, or deciding where you needed to spend the effort on it. And Bobby pretty well let me, for the most part, do what I wanted to do in terms of what I thought would look good. And, he was also good about, I've done this for 30 years, and I would do something, then he'd go, okay, well, let me show you how you could have done it in a fraction of the time. It was like, oh, yeah, I see how that works. That's good. And the good thing about that experience was it was, as you guys well know, every time you're working on a customer's car, you're spending their money. So are they getting their dollar's worth as you work? So that was a big thing. Like, think about how you're using your time. Think about how everybody else is using their time, and then, go from there. So, and so that was a really great opportunity. Got to work on some great cars, be part of amazing builds. And I had to, it was presented that if I ever wanted to own the shop, I could own the shop. And so that was always in the back of my head. And, the thing about experiences like that is you learn what fits you and what doesn't fit you. And one of the things I learned is that I'm probably, as far as somebody who is a manager of people, I'm probably not the toughest person in the world, because I don't think I need to be overly aggressive to get you to do what you should probably do. I feel like we're all adults here. I should be able to,
Yeah.
And I probably come off as I'm going to be your friend, which is not good for me if I'm trying to be the boss.
Yeah.
And it's just, I kind of figured that's probably not the long-term solution for me. And I wanted it to be, and I wanted to help carry that name further.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I knew the likelihood of me funding the project, of owning it, and taking on the responsibility of employees and making sure everybody was getting a paycheck every week, sounded like there wasn't probably enough anti-anxiety pills out there to take care of that.
I was about to say the one you liked wasn't strong enough for that.
There was not going to be enough of that, because it takes a certain person to do it. And, when I finally got to the point where I decided I was going to take a job working for Aeromotive, and had to tell Bobby and his wife Karen that I was not going to be the next legacy of, that was very tough, because it was really hard for me to go in there and tell them, look, I'm not your guy. I thought I was. And I realized that drastically probably changes what you expected your next 5 years to be like. And I'm sorry for that. But it's probably better that this is determined now than 5 years down the road, because I would feel even worse if, so I was there like 2.5, almost 3 years. So I think, like, if I was there 5, 6 years and then got to that point, it would be even worse.
Yeah.
It's like, and it was nothing that was bad. It was just, I knew what my wheelhouse was, and that wasn't it.
Right.
But I'd like to point out, I got some great experience out of that, because that's the thing with every job. Every job was a great experience of some sort. I gained a skill set out of it I didn't have before I went there. And the part that was fun for me was I got to be part of, so like I was always part of everybody's build with taking care of the plating. I didn't physically do the plating. So it was like I was part of it, but I wasn't part of it. Getting to work in the hot rod shop and be part of the build and then go compete on the stage, that was...
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, it was
the thing you see right there. Yeah, I did that.
That was an incredible experience. And the truck that we did for Bill Paul won Street Rod of the Year at Good Guys, and that was incredible. I was really sorry for Bobby that he couldn't be there. I was happy to go for him in his place and experience that. But it was a great reward for somebody who's had a long career in the industry. And we got to debut the Camaro at SEMA this last year, and it went over real well. It's
a cool car. Really cool car.
It was a finalist for Best on RS, which was what we were hoping for. So
well deserved.
So yeah, it was like I said, it was another good experience.
I think Bobby got into it a little bit at the party that night.
Oh, he was having fun.
Yeah, he looked like he was having a good time.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's like, Oh, going to the roadster shop parties is the most fun. Because the year before he was out there, and we had done the interior in Andy's Wagoneer.
Yes.
So he got to party firsthand with everybody celebrating the win. So,
Okay, awesome.
And funny enough, there was a little bit of handling of the belt later at Scottsdale that the guys at Classic Car Studio won.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's some pictures out there of the truck owner, Bill, with the belt and his pants down. So
Wondering where that was going.
Yes.
I'd assumed.
I remember the post.
Yep. So
Well, I just want you to know, I think I speak for all three of us, even though Jeremy's not here. The reason why you're where you are today is directly because of the person you are, right? The work ethic, the friendship. There's never been, and that's hard to say with as long as all of us have been in this. We've got friends, we've got acquaintances, we got people we like. But I know me and you, this is rare to have somebody that you don't have to use it, but at any point in time, I could count on you. And that's same thing for everything you've ever done for Roadster Shop, everything you've done for the three of us personally, and that's why you are where you are today. I mean, when you told the story about your dad going down and helping Steve rebuild the motors, that summed it all up and put it in a nice little box for me right there. I was like, oh, okay, I understand it. You're fucking raised right. That's all there is I've got a skill set.
More to it than that, probably.
But
His part.
yeah, but if you're raised right, you're raised right, and understanding that yes, you have a skill set. You also have tenacity. You also have work ethic. You put those three together in any possible scenario, you can be a benefit. You might not be able to fix the problem 100%, but you could be an asset to it. You might be able to fix the problem 100%, but regardless, if you can add value, you're going to sit around on your ass or you're going to add value. And that's what you've done your entire career that I've known you. I mean, you were showing pictures. He was talking about the, Elia will put this picture in right now because he's going to send it. When Jesse was telling the story, when we did the Ethos off-site special edition podcast, when he was talking about Josh hanging out and him afraid of sending Josh out the car or whatever, he's showing me the picture from the other side. And one, great picture. Number two, Jesse has aged poorly. Wow. He was 14 years old driving the fucking 32 at this point. But that
was like 2007, I think.
Yeah.
The red
That was a
32.
few years ago.
Honestly, we've had so much fun and so many great conversations. All of us we got a very similar sense of humor, great style, great taste. We've had a lot of fun on a special project that's coming out fairly soon, and a lot of conversations about stuff. And you're one of the few that I hold very dear as a friend, and wish you nothing but the best. And that's what it is. Like it's
Well said.
Thank you. That means a lot, and I feel the same way for all of you guys as well.
I'm just glad we finally got to hire him after chasing him for like 15
fucking
years.
took long enough.
Damn,
fucking hey, shit.
Yeah, dude, a shorter version of what Josh said, but you've been one of the very few people in the industry that we've always really aligned with and thought you kind of fit our exact same mentality, tenacity, taking care of the customer, trying to get the product done correctly and make sure that end of the day the customer is happy and blown away with the end result. And just, it's been great being friends for all these years. Happy to have you part of the team now and excited for what the future is going to bring.
Absolutely.
It's rare when, we were talking not too long ago about Eric Black.
Yeah.
Right. And then sometimes you just vibe with somebody, right? And you can just say a few words and you can communicate instead of trying to have to paint the picture. If you can say words and somebody else understands and they can see the vision that's in your head, then you can connect, right?
Oh, yeah.
Instead of being like, no, I'm talking about this. And that you're one of those persons, right? We could talk about something, whether it be marketing, whether it be sales, and you can be like, cookies, penguins, race cars. You're like,
I know exactly what you're
got it.
talking about.
Fucking A. And it's, you know, it's that fucking way, and it's great to be able to vibe with somebody and communicate and have a teammate and have a warrior with you doing the shit that we need to do. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to. I've only been with Aeromotive now for a month and a half, almost 2 months.
We're kicking ass
But
already.
I'm looking forward to what we do in the future. So
It's a great team, great bunch of guys. I think we're going to start running through. There's a lot of guys there we need to have on the podcast. There's some,
yeah.
some great stories
Some
we
good
need to
ones,
tell.
yeah.
It's standard questions time.
Oh boy.
First up, we'll go easy. Favorite car movie? Don't tell me Christine.
Well, I was gonna say Chris.
Fuck, of course you were.
You knew I was gonna say
Of course you
that.
were going to say Christine.
I'm gonna go Cars. I just think you'll appreciate a little nuance.
You know what's funny about that is last night my daughter was talking about, now it's the end of school year, and she's like, in first grade they were getting to pick a movie, and she's like, you know what the options were? And she rattled them off, and she said Cars. I was like, well, I'd pick Cars if I were you.
Yep.
But no, I mean, obviously Christine because of the Plymouth. But, you know, I will say that of all the movies kind of surrounding Cars, I did go see Gone in 60 Seconds like 3 times in the movie theater when it was out.
It was good.
You
It
know,
was really good.
It's because of the Marlboro Red and the... I just blast and feel so much better about myself.
Have you seen what Nicolas Cage looks like? You know, what's the new movie?
He's playing John Madden, which I'm like,
Yes.
who cast that?
Have you seen him?
Yeah, it's him and Owen Wilson, right?
No, it's Christian Bale. He's playing... Christian Bale's playing
Christian Bale's
Davis.
Al Davis.
Which
But-
is like, yeah, Christian Bale can play anybody, but
He's put on some pounds.
he had to for that role. But
Yeah, but wow, that's wild.
I'm just curious, is he going to try and sound like Madden, or is it going to be like, we've got to run a play here, man?
You better sound like Madden. If you're gonna do Madden, you better sound like Madden. Madden had the
Frank
voice.
Caliendo is doing just voiceover.
Madden, yeah. Caliendo's the best Madden there ever was.
We're going to have Nick Cage in the role, but we're going to do all the voice work with
Caliendo.
Caliendo.
All right, next up. This one's going to be an interesting one because as long as we've been friends, you might have told me. I don't remember. I don't think you have. We've never talked about first car stuff. And this one's going to be...
I don't think we should do it because it's going to ruin it for me because I have a picture of him in my mind of exactly what it is, and there's no way you're changing that.
Oh, I want to hear. Are you taking shots?
What year did you graduate high school?
Class at 2000.
Okay. And your first vehicle was a gift or you purchased it?
My dad bought it.
Your dad bought it.
And it was also partially a gift.
Did you start working on it way before you turned 16?
I did.
It's a first-gen Chrysler LeBaron convertible with the wood kit on it.
I don't think he's an Iacocca Chrysler fan. I think he's way earlier.
Hey, the K car got him out of trouble. But yeah, no, I'm not gonna. I can't think of a LeBaron convertible with wood grain without thinking about either Plain Trains and
Costanza.
Automobile or Frank Costanza and John Voight.
Yes. That's
John Voight's
the pencil.
Chrysler.
The pencil, remember the Oh, the movie reference. There's
Now,
nobody in this
can't-
industry, bar none. You have the lyrics references, nobody can beat you. I don't care. The entire automotive aftermarket industry, nobody can beat you on rap lyrics. You cannot be beat on movie references. And there's some shit that's like, holy fuck, how did you pull that out?
I'll fire out like some that are extremely obscure that nobody else gets, and he just like rattles off the next 6 lines.
Yeah, but
Shit, I didn't remember that much of it.
I really wish there was a way to make money off of it.
Me too.
It's funny because in the break room at Aeromotive, there's a TV on. And a couple of days ago, it was at lunchtime it was running like trivia questions. So I stood there while two people were sitting there, and the one guy turned around and goes, "Why aren't you on Jeopardy?" And I'm like, "Because this is like easy stuff. They ask hard questions on Jeopardy."
All right, 2000. But the car started working on it.
Now, I would like to Phil's point, a buddy of mine that I carpooled with occasionally on bad snowy days, he would drive his grandmother's K-car LeBaron convertible, and I'd ride in it. So
Woody package on it?
I think it did, yes. Yeah. It was white with the wood grain on the side.
Red interior.
So you were very close.
He rode in one. He just didn't own one.
I didn't know it.
Changing my mind.
Yeah, I did.
You saw the picture. That's all that mattered. You saw the picture in your mind.
Knowing my taste in cars, it's probably not going to be your first guess.
But see, teenagers, you started on it earlier. Truck or car?
Car.
Okay, it was a car.
Young Josh maybe had a little wild streak in him, got him a Fox body Mustang.
Wait. I'm going to preface this with I think I might have been.
I told you not too long ago.
You told me at the race.
It's a Mercury Capri.
No. I'm
now
I'm
he
gonna,
probably knows. So.
I do know. I think I know.
And I'd like to back up that I sent you a picture of it one time. But it was a long time ago. And the reason I sent
Was it a shortened Chrysler Imperial?
Oh, God, no.
Convertible.
Those are fighting words.
You and a bunch of buddies were riding around in that thing, weren't you?
No way.
That's what we need for his office.
That picture?
Yes.
Yeah. We'd make it happen.
I'd like to take
Yes.
things that are no for 1,000.
It's going to be a full raw wrap in the back of your office.
Oh, I forgot about that picture.
Yeah.
I've got it on my phone. We're good.
I'm sure you do.
Pennywise driving the fucking.
Let's leave it at that.
It's a second gen Camaro.
He's exactly right.
70 Camaro.
71.
Yep.
And the reason
Or 71. Yeah.
The reason I sent you a picture of it was because you guys had posted online what Rampage looked like when it came in.
Oh, yes.
It was because the car I had was tan with a dark brown vinyl top. It was the most plain Jane second gen you could own.
When you said no truck and you went car, and then I started thinking, we had the conversation at Streetcar Takeover. You told me, that's not a guess. I was compromised. The knowledge was in there. I just had to find it. I just couldn't remember.
Talking about it kind of ruined it, I guess.
Yeah, it did. Hey, no problem. Second gen Camaro. Small block? No.
Yep.
But a 400 small block.
No.
Tell me it was bored out to a 400.
No, it's think of like as gutless as you could think of.
Not a 305.
It was a 307.
307, okay.
Yeah.
That's worse than a 305, honestly.
So there was a guy in town that was a good friend, and he had started redoing the car for either his daughter or his ex-wife. I can't remember. And him and my dad got together, and he was kind of like, this would be a good first car for him. But, he's got to have to finish it because at that point he'd like hung quarters on it or something. And at that point in my life, all I wanted was a finned Chrysler product. So I was most kids would
better than a second gen Camaro.
What 16-year-old doesn't?
Yeah. Most 16-year-olds would have been thrilled to death with a second gen Camaro.
You were not happy?
I was totally bummed out.
Really?
Yeah, but I was like, you know what? I'll make it work. And I know.
You were born different.
I know. And it's funny because I can remember there was a house not far from where I went to school, and there was a 57 Plymouth two-door post plaza that sit next to this house. And I got my dad to stop there one day, and the guy wanted like $500 for it. And I was kind of like, ugh. I didn't have two nickels to rub together. And my dad was kind of like, I don't know about that. And, nowadays I'm like, I can't believe
We passed
what a
on
golden
that.
opportunity that was. It just, for a Camaro. But ended up finishing the car. My dad helped. My grandfather helped. Painted it multiple times. It had lacquer on it.
Kragers or Welds?
Rallies. bought me Kragers that I seen at a store that was going out of business that I wanted, and then they didn't fit. So we ended up selling them, and then I just went with the rallies.
Lakeside bars on it?
No.
He's a purist.
Yeah, he is a purist. That's restored.
Now, now the funny part is, I didn't like how high the car set stock, and I kept threatening to cut the coils on it. My dad was like, "Don't do that. What's wrong with you?" Well, then one day, him and my mom went to Florida for work. So you know what I did? I cut the coils, and then went and had the car aligned.
That didn't work out, did it?
He was kind of like,
Did you block the rear or did you leave it?
I left it. And it set good. It looked good. It set good. And we drove the car to Good Guys Dallas in 99. And car did great.
Hell yeah.
Drove it on part of the power tour in 97 or 8, I think. I
Really?
can't remember. Yeah. A lot of fun. And so I grew to like the car. And then I got to a point where I was like, I want some fins. And when I went to sell that car to buy a fin car, I couldn't give that car away. Which is just goes to show how much the market's changed.
Yeah.
Because at that time, if it wasn't a first gen, it was because I'd be like, I'm asking this for it. And the guy'd be like, if it was a first gen, maybe. Like, whoa. I don't need all that sass and attitude because it's a second gen.
You'd love to have that Camaro back again, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. You know, of everything I've owned, that's the one car my wife misses the most.
Really?
Yeah, because I was driving it when we met in college. And that's like, she's like, I love that car. She's like, I wish you had that car back. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Got to find you a second gen.
And I sold the car, and I sold it to probably the only person in the world that would ever love it as much as I did, because it was, like I said, it was an odd color combination. It was a full front bumper, bucket seat, no console, column shift, and it was base model Camaro. It wasn't an RS, SS, nothing like that. And when I decided I wanted to sell it when I was in college to buy something else, I put it online, early days of online, and not getting much action out of it. And then one day the phone rings, and this guy calls. He's like, hey, I'm looking at your car online. I'm very interested in it. I had one just like it. And I was like, yeah, sure you did. Because we've all heard that. I had one just like that.
It was a convertible. It was
Yeah, exactly.
Trans Am. It
was
yellow.
It was just like it, but it was, red. It's like, no, then it wasn't just like it. So I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever. We talked 2 or 3 times, and he's like, yeah, I want to buy the car. I'm like, awesome. Where are you at? New Jersey. I'm like, well, I'm in Kansas. And he's like, well, if you can deliver it, I'll pay for it. So I tell my dad, and Dad came to the rescue again. And
Dad's down for a road trip, isn't he?
Dad is down for a road trip. I think he's disappointed that nowadays I'm like, could we just fly? Because
Sounds like a long drive.
that sounds like a long drive. And my dad would tell you that what I contributed on that trip was just finding every position I could sleep in the passenger seat of the truck as we took the car out there. But so now this is the funny part of this whole story. Being in Topeka, Kansas, and you got a guy in New Jersey that wants to buy the car, and he has an incredibly Italian last name. My dad's like got a little trepidation about it.
He's suspicious.
He's like, I don't know about this. He's like, you're going to get some money up front? I'm like, yeah, he's going to send me some money up front. And he's like, what are we going to do when we get out there? I was like, well, we could drive the car out there and fly back. The guy said he'd buy plane tickets. He's like, my dad's like, I'm not driving all the way out there and then depending on somebody with that last name to get me an airplane. and I'm like, okay. So my dad's like, look, I got a friend that's got a trailer. I bet we could borrow it, and he'd let us haul it out there. And he goes, make sure this guy knows that if he doesn't offer you exactly what you want, I have no problems pulling this car back to Kansas. I was like, okay. So I tell him, and everything. And I'm like, I get the money, and they're like, Dad, calm down. And he's like, why? I'm like, because he's got puppy dogs on his check that he paid me with. I'm like, I don't think the leader of the mafia is paying with puppy dog checks. So
Puppy dog checks.
So It had, it had.
Well, I don't know what that was.
You're running out of space. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, we're good.
So it had dogs on it or something. It was very like unthreatening check. Wasn't like it came
Maybe
in
that
an
was
unmarked
intentional.
bag.
Yeah.
It's true. Throw us off the scent.
That's exactly what the leader of the mob would do.
Yeah. So I had 2 spots on the paint I had to fix on the car before I delivered it. And this was December. So I was like, after school's out, my dad and I'll bring the car out there. So my grandfather's helping me trying to get it finished. And we finally get to where I cut through on one spot, but we had to leave. So we sprayed it. And then I took the stuff with me to polish it. And we leave. And the first day, my dad and I get to just into the edge of Pennsylvania. It's like 900 miles. And Dad's like, okay, so the next day we're gonna sleep, and then when we wake up, and we'll drive and deliver the car, and then turn around and start heading back. So we drive over there, and the whole time they're preparing for some sort of winter storm because there's the whole way across Pennsylvania. There's like highway trucks at every turnaround point, getting ready to prepare the road. He's like, yeah, we're gonna turn around and get headed back. So we get there. Wash the car because it's been on the trailer, and I gotta sand that little spot and buff it. So I grab a chunk of ice and just kind of squeeze it till it melts, and use that to, professional, and then kind of buff the spot out, and it looks good. And we're like, well, we'll go get the guy, and we'll come over to the car. So we go over there, go to the guy's house. He opens the door. And he's a little person, which, again, not the mafia head. Oh, it could have been. I don't know.
Okay.
But
right.
So, it's kind of like, yeah, see all that.
Told
worrying,
you. Yeah.
This guy's harmless,
Yeah.
And so he shows me his picture book, and sure enough, he bought one new that looked exactly like that car.
Holy shit.
So like my dad told me, he goes, you found the only person in the world that would pay that amount of money for that car. So good job. And so we get, do all the paperwork and all that, and we're heading back. We're like driving down the road, and it's quiet, and my dad's like, I want you to know I was really, I don't think he said proud, but it's something along those lines of you back there, because when the guy opened the door, you never changed your composure at all. He goes, you could have very easily when you seen, based on all of the presuppositions that we had going out there.
You never.
He says your face was the same the whole time.
Cool
and you
as
never
a cucumber.
He was like, you were just. He goes, so good job. And I was, thanks, Dad. So
That's what he was happy about.
Yeah.
That's what. All right. You've listened to the podcast enough, so you know what's coming. You had to have prepared your law enforcement interaction story.
So my law enforcement interaction story is not so much me speeding or me getting tickets, because I've had plenty of speeding tickets, and I've had fender benders and things of that nature. I've even totaled a car. But
All the good ones have.
my law enforcement story goes to shooting a car.
Okay.
So back in the Buckaroo days, Super Rod and Buckaroo had this idea that we were going to host an event at Fontana Speedway. And I want to say that was like, it had to be like 04, 05. And it was a major flop. But we gave an award out there for like the best of the best. And the car that won it was Bruce Ricks's yellow and white 55
Oh, Steve Cook built.
that Steve Cook built.
Yep.
And that was another one of those. The car had already been shot before, but because it won, we wanted it. And John was like, you're in Kansas, he's in Oklahoma, figure it out. And
That was a great car.
fantastic build,
They had it at Louisville. Remember, it was on the lift
Oh, yeah.
at Street Rod Nationals.
And everybody got to see how nice that car was underneath.
Yep.
And that car, that's one of them cars that, like, that car was nice enough to win Detroit back in the day.
It was an awesome fucking car. Paul did the interior in it.
Yep.
Yep.
And that was the cool thing about photographing it, was Bruce gave me all the pictures, behind the scenes stuff, drawings, parts that he machined for it. And but anyway,
Paul and Laurel and Steve and his wife drank me into oblivion at the what's the host across from Louisville?
the executive.
The executive. That when that car is going on the lift at that weekend, I mean, I don't even know how I got back to any room that I got back to.
Now, is that back
I
in
don't
the
even know what
day
happened.
when they had two executives,
Yeah,
one
it
on
was
each side?
Executive West.
Yes. This was the old school bar, like the old wooden.
Where the pool was out back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the good days. Of
It was
Louisville.
great
People
day.
don't realize nowadays, I've been only going to Louisville for 5 years or something. It's like
Everybody says-
you don't know what you're missing out on.
Everybody says Paul can drink. Laurel can drink.
There's,
That was a night.
there's some impressive drinking in this industry. Period.
Yes, there is.
I mean, it could be a competition. I
Yeah.
mean, you've talked about it before on the podcast. Like, what industry spends more time drinking in parking lots?
I wish. You know what we should do? I would like to start a league to be able to put almost like a bare knuckle boxing, but and we can have our fighters, right? Because I've got
Drink who?
I'm right now. I'm calling it. I'm laying it down. I'm calling Skip Walls and Brett Vocal. I want them on my team, and I'll put
I've
them.
seen Brett at the end of the night a few times.
I'll put Brett and Skip against anybody you bring me.
That's kind of bringing
Chris
a ringer.
Stevens.
Well, Chris Stevens would die before he could. Yes, that's a good one. All right, you good. You got him on. But yes, you're 100% right. There's
What's funny about that, though, is like,
professionals.
when I started going to Louisville for the magazine and that bar was still there, it was like a mistake to walk by there at midnight.
Yeah, you can
Because
get
if there
hung
was
up.
anybody in there,
Roped in.
forget it. You're not going to bed till 3 because you're going to stand in there and talk.
It's like
to-
trying to get out of the parking lot at Columbus now.
Yeah,
It's like
go two
the
spots
best thing to
down.
do is just walk. Say you're going to go pee, walk to the street, and walk all the way around the block and come in the back way.
That's exactly right. So
Yeah, I wonder how many other industries, like, we need a block of rooms at this hotel for 50 people. Oh, great, we've got a bar downstairs. Yeah, we've got trunk and parking.
Don't worry.
worry about
as
that.
long as you got a parking lot, we're good.
we've got Jeff Greening's truck. We'll be fine. So Bruce and I talked back and forth, and Bruce is like, if you got a good place to shoot it up there where you live in Topeka, I'll just bring it to you. Simple enough. I was like, okay. So I start recruiting like where I'm going to shoot it at, and I'm like, this is a big time car, opportunity to like do an amazing job. I want the perfect spot. So I, go crazy, and my dad's like, hey, there's a small airport in town. I know the guy that works out there. Why don't we go look at it? So we go out there, and his buddy's like, this is a dead runway. If you want to shoot out here, perfect. So I was like, awesome. This is a great spot, open, everything.
Simple background, remember?
That's right. Simple background. So he and I meet early in the day. We do all the details. Buddy of mine had a muffler shop. He let us use his rack so I could take undercarriage stuff. We get out to the location. We start shooting. And, there's always one person that has to ruin the fun. Some dude and his son out in a prop plane, get on the microphone, or, what do you call that? CB? What do they call it?
Yeah, radio.
Airplane
Radio.
CB.
Yeah.
Airplane CB radio. And they're like, yeah, there's cars on the runway, blah, blah, blah. And, the guy on the deal's like, yeah, that's a dead runway. No worries about that, But this is not long after 9/11. And all of the air traffic talk is monitored. So from the moment of that happening to the moment of me taking pictures, all of a sudden the police show up. And they're like, you guys cannot be out here. I'm like, I have permission to be out here. You do not have permission to be out here. And Bruce, man, he's a bulldog given the opportunity. And he was ready to jump in. And Bruce was jumping in. And Bruce was like, you think I don't know you can't park on a runway? Like you think I'm going to come out here and just park on a runway because I can? And things are getting pretty heated, and it's like, well, how much, let me finish this. He's like, you'll be finished it in cuffs, It's like, okay, maybe we need to be wrapping this up. So I'm like I'm like trying to, you guys keep stalling, and I'm trying to click away. But at the same time, I feel like Bruce is probably getting us closer to getting arrested together. I love Bruce to death. But,
But this is about winning.
This
at
is
this
about
point.
winning.
Yeah,
It's like-
he's not going to lose at this point.
We're not going to lose at this point, and we came to get the car shot. The car needs to be in the magazine, and you guys are ruining it because you think we're doing something illegal, and we're totally not. And, the guy at the airport's like, yeah, I gave him permission, and they're like, yeah, well, you can't have cars this close to a runway, period. And it got ugly, but we all got out of there. Did I get as much as I wanted? No. Did I get enough? Yes. Did we get arrested? No.
Sounds like a win.
It was a win. And shout out to Bruce, because even when I was unemployed, the man gave me stuff to do to keep me afloat. So big props to, he's been a good friend all these years.
Oh, Bruce.
Yep. But yeah, he was a bulldog that day.
I could see him doing it too.
He was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Finger right in the
Yes.
chest.
Yeah, it was a honestly enough, the first time I ever met Bruce was a finger in the chest. Because that was when I first started working for Buckaroo, and we were in Tulsa at the Starbird event, and I was walking around taking pictures, and he's like, hey, are you with Buckaroo? And I was like, yep. Well, let me tell you something. You guys were supposed to shoot my car, and it turned into one of those. And I'm like, whoa. I don't have nothing to do with whatever you've been promised, but I promise you we'll get it taken care of. And, we've been friends ever since then. But
The speaking of Bruce and Steve, the sun camera was it's on my list. It's on my short list.
that was the first build book I ever did for a car.
Really?
I did. He called me.
That was a kick-ass car.
Unemployed at the time, and he was like, I need somebody to create a logo for the car, help with apparel, and do the build book. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And he's like, how much per hour? And I told him, and he goes, no. And I said, oh yeah? And he goes, no, you're worth more than that. So you need to be like this much an hour. I was like, okay. And I was like, we really should lay it out in this program, but I don't have it. And he's like, well, just buy it and I'll pay for it. And that was the kind of guy he is. And he let me go wild with that build book. And, it was hardbound when I'm going to go out on a limb and say at that time, nobody else was doing hardbound books like they are now. And, he flew me to Detroit. I got to celebrate with them when they won.
I was there that year when it was debuted.
It was fantastic.
Yeah. I think we walked around together looking at that car. It was us and Steve and you.
Yeah. I would have been up there for that. Yeah.
Those were the fun times too of Detroit when it was late night, everybody gone.
Yes.
And you get to actually
get to stay in late.
Get to stay, look at the cars, crawl around.
Got a great picture of you where you popped in the frame when I was trying to take a picture that I've saved on my computer all these years. I'm trying to take a picture of Andy's Model A, and you just kind of like slid over like.
Another killer car. That was a good old day. But the 56, that Sun Camera, that was a car that the car in and of itself, obviously a good looking car, but at the same time, it would have been easy to go down the path of trying to find like that hook of like, all right, what are we going to do with this? But they just made it look right, very subdued, everything just really nice, right?
Color
yeah,
combo.
You've got the right stance, you got the right color, you got there wasn't
Interior was spot on.
Never tried to be anything cute. It was just let's just do everything really nice and make it look good.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool parts on that car that I don't even know how many people realize it, And that was the cool thing about doing the build book was I knew all the details on it, and like he had that intake manifold cast for that car.
Mm-hmm.
He designed it, had it cast, and then he had a fake Ford part number cast into it that would have been what an experimental part number would have been for Ford.
I remember that. I remember that in your build book.
That's like
because the motor was all the matte red, right? The matte. Yeah. It was a wedge section too, wasn't it?
Yep.
The car. Yeah.
Yeah, it had a lot of really great touches. And when I was doing the build book, he had a stock convertible he bought, and he brought it to Topeka and let me take a bunch of pictures of it to use as comparisons so everybody could see it. So
that was a good car.
It was. That was a great build.
When nostalgic, thinking about old days. Best piece of advice.
Well, earlier I said find something you love.
Yeah.
That my dad said. I mean, my dad gave me so much great advice over the years. It's hard to pinpoint one. I don't know who said it to me.
Don't trust a short Italian. Is that what
Yeah.
he said? Something about?
Don't trust a guy with a lot of vowels in his name. One of the things I probably use more often than not nowadays is like the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you're going to half-ass sweep the floor, you're probably going to half-ass do everything else.
Yep. It's a John York one. Yep. He brings that one up a lot.
I like that. Obviously the making a living doing something you love stuck with me. My dad was always like, find something special and just be the best at it, and the work's going to come. And, it's pretty true.
Yeah. Josh has been absolutely amazing. Where do we go? What was the that's 412, man.
Whew. That was a long one.
That's a lot of talking.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember what the longest it was, but that one's going to be up there.
So I'll apologize ahead of time to all of my friends that you probably don't want to listen to me talk this long, but
Yes, start off with that.
No, this is
end.
yeah.
This was
I guess we should have started that at the first.
This
I don't
was
know how
great.
long this is going to go, but I'm sorry.
no. The problem what we did is we got this part done. We got the origin story built. We got all this stuff. Now we're going to have to run it back at the end of the year. Now we just get to hear all the cool stories, because that's really what I wanted to get into. But we had to set the stage first.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stories that it's like it'd be great to segue into, because I've got to experience a lot of really cool people that are no longer with us, whether it be like a Barry Lobeck or Boyd Coddington or somebody like that, Vic Edelbrock, that I got to experience with the magazine business. That
we're doing this again before the end of the summer. We're going to hear the Boyd stories. We're going to hear the Edelbrock stories. We're going to hear the Lobeck stories. We never even got to talk about hanging out the helicopter, doing the performance boat stuff. We never got to hear any of the performance boating show photography. I mean,
the dog show photography.
The dog show photography.
Yeah. I was. Rick loves Pomeranians.
There's so much more to go into.
Does Rick Love have Pomeranians?
Is that what you guys thought it was? I can't remember.
Show Pomeranians. Yeah. They're high. They don't. I think they call them pom-poms. I don't know if they. All right. It's been an absolutely amazing time.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you guys inviting me up here and being here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for kicking ass, everything you're doing. And
before I go, shout out to my wife, Maya, for all the support she's put.
You need to give her all the shout outs.
She needs everything, because she's been behind me the whole way.
I think she needs maybe a shopping spree weekend.
She does, definitely. And my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grayson and Leela, thank you. And of course, mom and dad and my grandparents. So.
Appreciate it. See you again next week.